Chapter 1279. Moon Yinyan shook her head when she saw Lu Junbai take his last breath. How can you compare yourself to someone who has a backer? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he said, Sister Nian, I didn't rely on anyone to reach self-release. Moon Yinyan looked at Yi Xian. Did that Yi Jiming help you? Yi Xian said in a low voice, She is not my backer. Moon Yinyan said, Why did she follow you and help you? Yi Xian was stunned. He really hadn't thought about this question. Moon Yinyan said, Because she wanted to borrow the strength of the person behind you. Yi Xian frowned slightly. A woman in a plain dress? Moon Yinyan rolled her eyes at Yi Xian. What else do you think? Yi Xian fell silent. Moon Yinyan said, Am I considered your backer? Yi Xian hurriedly nodded. Yes. Moon Yinyan smiled. Then did I wrongly accuse you? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he shook his head. No. Sister Nian, is it really because of reading and studying that you reached the true release one realm? Moon Yinyan smiled. What do you think? Yi Xian fell silent. Moon Yinyan said in a soft voice, Self-release refers to escaping from the Grand Tao and becoming the one outside the Grand Tao. However, many people don't even know what the Grand Tao is. Since they don't know the Grand Tao, how did they escape? Yi Xian said in a low voice, But Moon Yinyan suddenly said, Did you really escape from the Grand Tao? Yi Xian looked at Moon Yinyan. Moon Yinyan smiled. Strictly speaking, you can't be considered to have truly escaped from the Grand Tao. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, How is that possible? Moon Yinyan smiled and said, There are actually 3 realms of self-release. The first is what the world calls false self-release. I won't say much about this. The second type is like you. You have indeed escaped from the Great Tao, but you have escaped from the Great Tao. Yi Xian frowned. What do you mean? Moon Yinyan said, The third is Tao validation. Escaping from the Great Tao could only mean escaping from the scope of the Great Tao. Proving the Tao referred to the fusion of oneself and the Tao after thoroughly understanding the Great Tao. Self-release, in reality, is still within the Tao. However, few people can corroborate the Tao, merge themselves with this Tao. As she spoke, she gazed at the spot where Lu Junbai had perished earlier, and she said with a smile, Do you know why his sword move was useless against me? Because I've already attained the Tao, and I'm one with everything in the world. How could the might of a single person shake the might of the world? Yi Xian said in a deep voice, What about breaking the Tao? Moon Yinyan looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, You even know about breaking the Tao. Looks like that woman told you a lot of things. Yi Xian nodded. Moon Yinyan smiled and said, Breaking the Tao refers to surpassing the Tao, standing above the Tao, truly not within the rules. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Then what do they mean by above self-release? Moon Yinyan shook her head and smiled. What they mean by above self-release is actually to corroborate the Tao. However, most of them don't know what true self-release and corroborate the Tao are. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Why? Moon Yinyan smiled and said, Because the Tao scriptures were not complete back then. Whether it was the divine kingdom of Shumi or other places, the Tao scriptures obtained were not complete. Therefore, very few people could attain true self-release and corroborate the Tao. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, In that case, the Tao scriptures are the origin of the martial Tao? Moon Yinyan looked at Yi Xian. There are 2 kinds of cultivators in the world. The first is the cultivators of the Tao scriptures. The second is outside of the Tao scriptures. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Plain-dressed woman. Moon Yinyan nodded, She is outside of the Tao scriptures. Therefore, she has no realm. Her strength is not restricted by the rules of the Tao scriptures. Because she has no realm. Hearing this, Yi Xian understood. No wonder he had asked the plain-dressed woman what level she had reached. She never said it. She didn't even have a realm, so how could she say it? As if he thought of something, Yi Xian suddenly turned to look at Bodhisattva Wen Tian and the others not far away. Mu Niannian did not hide his words just now. Therefore, Bodhisattva Wen Tian and the others heard it clearly. Bodhisattva Wen Tian looked at Mu Niannian and put his palms together. Listening to this lady's words today is better than 100 years of cultivation. Mu Niannian smiled. Looks like you have comprehended something, great monk. Bodhisattva Wen Tian nodded, yes. At this moment, he was extremely shocked. Someone outside of the Tao scriptures. The plain-dressed woman is outside of the Tao scriptures. This person in front of me is also outside of the Tao scriptures. Mu Niannian suddenly smiled. Do you know why I told you this? Bodhisattva Wen Tian looked at Mu Niannian and put his palms together. Leave. The 18 ancient arhats did not leave. Bodhisattva Wen Tian said again, send a message back. Hearing this, the 18 people understood. They seriously underestimated Mu Niannian's realm and strength. This woman is not someone ordinary people can deal with. The 18 ancient arhats turned around and left. Mu Niannian smiled, it's a bit too late to escape now. Bodhisattva Wen Tian looked at Mu Niannian, put his palms together, and silently chanted. Soon, countless golden scriptures flew out of his mouth, and in an instant, these scriptures covered heaven and earth. Mu Niannian chuckled, the Buddhist's golden mouth and jade words is quite interesting. Unfortunately, your Buddhist dharma is not enough. You're dreaming if you want to trap me with this world. As she spoke, she gently waved her right hand, and the golden scriptures between heaven and earth directly collapsed. At this moment, a sword ray pierced through the sky, and at the end of the distant horizon, 18 heads fell to the ground. Instant kill. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian's expression was extremely solemn. Realm suppression. This is true realm suppression. In front of this realm, all magical techniques are useless. Yi Xian knew that even if he used that Tao scripture martial art on Mu Niannian, he would still be crushed and instantly killed. Mu Niannian has already proven her Tao. To a certain extent, she is no longer within the scope of Tao scripture. If I encounter an expert of this level, I'm afraid I won't be able to fight back. Bodhisattva Wen Tian stared at Mu Niannian. At this moment, he finally felt how terrifying Mu Niannian is. Tao validation. Although it is only a realm difference, this realm difference is truly like heaven and earth. With the realm suppression, all magical techniques are useless. Bodhisattva Wen Tian put his palms together. Miss Mu is truly an extraordinary person. Mu Niannian smiled, Master, take care. Bodhisattva Wen Tian bowed slightly, and in the next moment, his head flew out, and blood spurted out like a fountain. The moment Bodhisattva Wen Tian's head flew out, a thumb-sized golden pearl floated out. Yi Xian was a little surprised. Sister Nian, this is? Mu Niannian smiled, this is his Buddhist golden core, known as a sarira in the secular world. Only virtuous monks would have something like this. As she spoke, she lightly beckoned with her right hand, and the golden core instantly flew into her hand. Yi Xian looked at Mu Niannian, and Mu Niannian smiled, I can't give this to you. The Western paradise cares a lot about this thing. If it's on you, they can use it to find you. Yi Xian nodded, Sister Nian, what do we do now? Mu Niannian suddenly turned her head and looked at the stone tablet not far away. Just now, the heaven and earth had been destroyed, but this stone tablet was not damaged at all. Mu Niannian pointed out with her fingers, and a strand of sword light directly slashed the stone tablet. Chi! The sword light slashed on the stone tablet, and left a shallow sword mark on the stone tablet. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian was a little shocked. What kind of strength does Mu Niannian have? She was actually unable to destroy the stone tablet with a single sword strike. Mu Niannian smiled, this stone tablet is extraordinary, and it contains the Grand Tao Law. As she spoke, she led Yi Xian to the front of the stone tablet. Yi Xian looked at the stone tablet, and there was nothing on it, just a wordless stone tablet. After looking at the stone tablet for a long time, Mu Niannian suddenly said, Go touch it. Touch it. Yi Xian's expression was a little strange. Sister Nian, what do you mean? Mu Niannian smiled. I want to see if you have fate with this stone tablet. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Sister Nian can see that this stone tablet is extraordinary? Mu Niannian nodded. Touch it. Yi Xian nodded. He walked to the stone tablet, and placed his right hand on it, and just as his right hand touched the stone tablet, boom! Yi Xian was suddenly sent flying. He flew hundreds of feet away. When Yi Xian stopped, he was completely dumbfounded. His entire right arm was gone. After all, his whole body cracked, and blood splattered. This had almost destroyed his physical body. Yi Xian raised his head to look at the stone tablet, and his face was filled with confusion. What is this thing? How strong was his physical body now? Besides true self-release realm experts, ordinary people could not even think of harming his body. However, that power just now had directly destroyed his physical body. No, it was Mu Niannian who made a move. Yi Xian noticed that Mu Niannian had taken a step back, and Mu Niannian must have blocked a part of the power for him, otherwise, he would not have lost his arm, but would have died on the spot. Yi Xian walked to Mu Niannian's side, and smiled bitterly. Sister Nian, look at me, I'm so miserable. Mu Niannian rolled her eyes at Yi Xian. Who told you to touch it? Yi Xian was stunned. Didn't you tell me to touch it? Mu Niannian blinked. Did I tell you to touch it? Yi Xian almost collapsed. Did you not? Mu Niannian smiled sheepishly. I was wrong just now. What I meant was that you use a sword to touch it. Use the green-robed man's sword. Yi Xian looked at Mu Niannian, not saying anything. Mu Niannian blinked. Don't tell me you want to hit me? Yi Xian's mouth twitched, and he forced a smile. No. I don't have that thought. Mu Niannian stared at Yi Xian. I feel that you have that thought. Yi Xian quickly shook his head. No, it's my fault. I didn't understand Sister Nian's words. It's my fault. Mu Niannian nodded. It's good that you know you're in the wrong. Come, continue touching it. Yi Xian felt bitter in his heart. Yi Xian walked to the front of the stone tablet, and instead of using his hands, he took out the sword spirit. Yi Xian looked at Mu Niannian. Sister Nian, it won't be dangerous, right? Mu Niannian shrugged. It depends on whether the owner of the sword has enough face. Yi Xian hesitated, and then said, Sister Nian, why don't you touch it? Is it because of your face? At this point, he seemed to have thought of something, and quickly stopped talking. Mu Niannian gave him a half-smile. What do you want to say? Yi Xian quickly shook his head. No, I don't want to say anything. With that, he turned around and pointed at the stone tablet with the sword spirit. But soon, he stopped. At this time, Mu Niannian said, Don't worry, it won't hurt the sword. Yi Xian was a little confused. Sister Nian, even my body can't take it, this sword. Mu Niannian looked at Yi Xian. Brother, wake up, this sword is stronger than you. Yi Xian was speechless. Chapter 1280. This sword is stronger than me. Yi Xian's expression became somewhat strange. Mu Niannian looked at Yi Xian. You don't believe me? Yi Xian chuckled, not saying anything. Mu Niannian shook her head. This sword's strength lies not in its sharpness, but in its realm. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Mortal realm? Mu Niannian nodded. Not just any ordinary mortal, but one who has reached the peak. Yi Xian frowned. What do you mean? Mu Niannian laughed. Only those who have reached the peak are qualified to say that they are ordinary. What is ordinary? It is those who have reached the peak feel that the peak is meaningless, so they choose to be ordinary. Many people misunderstand this word, because many people don't want to be ordinary, but they have no choice but to be ordinary. They can't reach the peak, so they can only be ordinary, not want to be ordinary. To put it simply, only those who have reached the peak are qualified to say that they are ordinary. Yi Xian was silent. He didn't expect that there was such a level of understanding. Mu Niannian continued, in the secular world, there is a saying, to look at a mountain is a mountain, to look at a mountain is not a mountain, and to look at a mountain is still a mountain. This refers to a kind of realm in life. Different realms view different things differently. Saying this, she pointed at the distant stone tablet. It may not care about you, but it will definitely care about this sword. Yi Xian was somewhat curious. Why? Mu Niannian chuckled, because this stone tablet is also extraordinary. Yi Xian nodded. He didn't ask any more, turned around and pointed the sword at the stone tablet. Bang! The stone tablet suddenly shook violently. This time it didn't counterattack, allowing Yi Xian to heave a sigh of relief. He didn't want to experience that feeling again. At this time, a line of words suddenly appeared on the stone tablet: past, present, next. Yi Xian looked at Mu Niannian. Mu Niannian smiled and said, "It seems that the owner of this sword has some face." Yi Xian asked solemnly, "Sister Nian, what does this stone tablet mean?" Mu Niannian smiled and said, "Dao Shi." Yi Xian was a little curious. What is a Dao stone? Mu Niannian shook his head. "I don't know. Let's go." With that, she turned around and left. Yi Xian hurriedly followed. You don't want it anymore?" Mu Niannian looked at Yi Xian. "You want it?" Yi Xian smiled sheepishly. "This. Leaving it here, exposed to the wind and the sun, isn't it a little too good?" Mu Niannian looked at Yi Xian and said nothing. Yi Xian didn't dare to smile mischievously anymore. "Sister Nian, is there a problem?" Mu Niannian turned to look at the Dao Shi and said, "You can even encounter this thing. You really are a devil." Yi Xian was speechless. Mu Niannian softly said, "The Dao Stone, also known as the Stone of Three Lives. On it, there are three legendary powers, namely the past life, present life, and future life. In other words, it is the legendary chant of three lives." With that, she looked at Yi Xian. "This thing comes from the underworld." The underworld. Yi Xian was a little shocked. He remembered that Mu Niannian said that even she didn't want to provoke that place. Mu Niannian said again, "Because this stone was born at the beginning of the world, it received the essence of the sun and moon, and gradually gained spirituality. Later, because it comprehended the Tao, it produced two divine inscriptions, which divided the stone into three parts. It has the intent to devour the universe. Later on, a deity sealed it. That deity, in order to prevent the stone from wreaking havoc in the universe, forcefully moved it to the nether realm and used the yin qi of the nether realm to suppress its demonic nature. Who would have thought that this thing would end up here? Furthermore, you've encountered it." Yi Xian said in a low voice, "Could it be the cause of calamity?" Mu Niannian looked at Yi Xian. "This thing is not a good thing." At this moment, the stone of three lives suddenly trembled violently. Soon, two blood-red divine inscriptions appeared on the stone, and these two divine inscriptions happened to divide the stone of three lives into three parts. Three extremely terrifying forces crushed toward Mu Niannian. At this moment, the world changed drastically. The world around them was actually dying bit by bit at this moment. It was directly dying, just like the natural destruction of the universe. It was even more terrifying than being wiped out. Yi Xian's expression changed. What kind of power was this? Beside Yi Xian, Mu Niannian was expressionless. She took a step forward and lightly pressed her palm forward. Boom! An invisible barrier blocked the three types of energy. However, the world around her and Yi Xian had already completely disappeared. In less than a breath's time, the entire god's battlefield was completely gone. At this moment, she and Yi Xian were already surrounded by the three forces. Yi Xian's expression was incomparably solemn. He knew that he couldn't resist these three forces, not even with the Dao scripture martial arts. The Dao scripture martial arts were still within the scope of martial arts, but these three forces had already surpassed the scope of martial arts. At this moment, Mu Niannian suddenly spread out her hand. "Come!" Buzz! A sword's cry suddenly resounded in the world. In the next moment, a sword appeared in Mu Niannian's hand. Mu Nianyan's sword stabbed out. On the tip of the sword, a dot of sword light appeared. Boom! With a single strike, the three forces were instantly repelled from the three lives stone. However, the sword in Mu Nianyan's hand was still there. The three forces had not disappeared. Moreover, the three lives stone's aura was even stronger than before. However, it was firmly suppressed by a wisp of Mu Nianyan's sword intent. Mu Nianyan looked at the three lives stone and smiled. You want to fight me? If it wasn't for the fact that you're in a difficult situation, would have crushed you with my sword. Past life, present life, and future life? In front of me, Mu Nianyan, it's all trash. The three lives stone did not attack again. Clearly, it was somewhat afraid. Yi Xian hesitated. Stone, let's talk. The three lives stone trembled slightly as if in response. Yi Xian looked at Mu Nianyan. What is she saying? Mu Nianyan's face was expressionless. She told you to scram. Yi Xian flew into a rage when he heard this. This was going too far. He was just about to attack, but he quickly stopped himself. I can't deal with this stone. At this moment, the stone suddenly trembled again, and it seemed to be saying something. Mu Nianyan said indifferently, it told you to scram. Yi Xian was speechless. Right at this moment, Xiaoling suddenly appeared by Yi Xian's side. Xiaoling looked at the three lives stone and said, Big brother, it said it wants to follow you. Follow me? Yi Xian was stunned, and then he looked at Mu Nianyan. Mu Nianyan blinked. Why are you looking at me? Yi Xian's face darkened. Sister Nian, didn't you say it told me to scram? Mu Nianyan looked at Yi Xian with a puzzled expression. Did I say that? As soon as she finished speaking, the corners of her mouth curled up slightly into a naughty smile. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched when he saw this, and he hurriedly said, No, you didn't. I misheard you. Xiaoling raised her head to look at Yi Xian, and she was slightly puzzled. Big brother, big sister told you to scram. Why did you lie? Are you afraid of being beaten up by big sister? Is that why you lied? Yi Xian glared at Xiaoling. Hurry up and refine the pill. As soon as he finished speaking, he tossed Xiaoling into the prison pagoda. When did this Xiaoling become so mischievous? Yi Xian looked at Mu Nianyan. Sister Nian, you don't want it to follow me, right? Mu Nianyan nodded. Yi Xian smiled. Alright, then I don't want it. Let's go. Mu Nianyan shook her head. It's not a matter of whether you want it or not. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Is it going to force itself to follow me? In the distance, the stone of three lives suddenly trembled, and the two divine veins on its surface trembled. Mu Nianyan looked at Yi Xian. Do you see that? If you don't let it follow you, it's going to beat you to death. Yi Xian, F***ck, Mu Nianyan looked at the stone of three lives. After a long time, she said in a low voice, Let it follow me. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Will it listen to my commands? Mu Nianyan looked at Yi Xian. You're dreaming. It wants to follow you, not because it likes you, but because it wants to use you. Yi Xian was puzzled. Use me for what? Mu Nianyan calmly replied, You have the calamity karma on you, but you also have great luck. This great luck was brought to you by the person behind you. He followed you precisely because he wanted to borrow your great luck. That Yi Jiming is the same. Yi Xian said in a low voice, So you're saying that it wants a good life without working? Mu Nianyan nodded. That's right. Yi Xian, Mu Nianyan said, Let's go. Saying so, she turned and left. At this time, the stone of three lives suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Looking at the stone of three lives, Yi Xian was speechless. This guy wants to force itself to follow me. But it doesn't matter. Although it doesn't want to work for now, I can slowly sway it. At this thought, Yi Xian felt relieved. Just like that, he brought the Stone of 3 Lives into the prison pagoda. After leaving the gods' battlefield, Mu Niannian disappeared, while Yi Xian headed to the Dao world. Somewhere in the starry sky, Mu Niannian walked slowly with a trace of worry in her eyes. At that moment, Ling Er's voice was heard. "What's wrong?" Mu Niannian looked at her hand. She didn't know when a shallow red line had appeared in it. After a long silence, Mu Niannian shook her head. "This guy can get involved in the netherworld just by fighting. He's too damn good at stirring up trouble. Who can stand against him?" Then, she shook her head and disappeared. When Yi Xian arrived in the Dao world, he immediately found Jiang Yu and Li Qing in the hall. Jiang Yu looked at Yi Xian's empty right shoulder. "Young Master Yi, are you saying that they have already attacked you?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes." Li Qing suddenly asked, "How did you escape from their hands?" Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "Mu Niannian attacked. However, she is seriously injured and can't attack for a while." Li Qing and Jiang Yu exchanged glances. Jiang Yu said in a deep voice, "Young Master Yi, what are your plans next?" Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "They definitely won't let it go. In that case, why don't we take the initiative to attack?" Upon hearing that, Jiang Yu's eyelids twitched. "Are you talking about attacking the realm of bliss?" Yi Xian shook his head. "We can't attack the realm of bliss, but we can ambush them. As long as they come looking for me, we can kill them directly." Jiang Yu and Li Qing were silent. Yi Xian said, "They came looking for me because they can't open the Dao scripture. Both of you, if I can't stop them, I can only choose to compromise and open the Dao scripture for them. This way, I might have a chance of survival." What he meant was that if they didn't help him, he would surrender. P.S. Asking for votes. His monthly votes did not increase, and he was terrified. Chapter 1281. Jiang Yu and Li Qing naturally understood Yi Xian's words. They exchanged a look and Jiang Yu said solemnly, "Young Master Yi, don't worry. Since we've formed an alliance, we'll naturally advance and retreat together." Li Qing glanced at Yi Xian but didn't say anything. She had never trusted Yi Xian. She even felt that the study was still in Yi Xian's hands. Of course, she had no proof. However, she had always been wary of Yi Xian. About an hour later, Yi Xian left Immortal Pavilion. When he left, he had a satisfied smile on his face. Godly Kingdom of Shumi. In a small hall within the palace, the godly Lord of Shumi sat quietly without saying a word. He just received news that Lu Junbai had fallen. The Immortal Sword Sect Super Sword Immortal was dead. Moreover, he also received news from the realm of pure bliss that Bodhisattva Wen Tian and the others had also fallen. Godly Lord Shumi's face was dark. After a long time, a complicated look flashed in Godly Lord Shumi's eyes. What a fifth dimension Tendo! I still underestimated him. Just how strong was Mu Niannian? At this moment, Godly Lord Shumi was uncertain. At this time, a monk in cloth robes suddenly appeared in the hall. The monk wore a kasaya and held an oil lamp in his hand. Godly Lord Shumi looked at the monk. When he saw the monk, he was slightly startled. He stood up and bowed. Buddha Burning Heart. Buddha. In the realm of pure bliss, Buddha was above Bodhisattva. Buddha Burning Heart placed his palms together and said softly, "That young lady should have reached the legendary Dao confirming realm." Dao confirming realm. Godly Lord Shumi's face gradually turned solemn. A true Dao confirming realm? Buddha Burning Heart nodded. She is a true void descent, a true Dao confirming realm without any flaws. Godly Lord Shumi was silent, his heart filled with shock. Buddha Burning Heart said softly, "I didn't expect a Tendo to reach Dao confirming realm." As he spoke, a complicated look flashed across his eyes. A Tendo, not only was he a true self-release, he was also at the Dao confirming realm. This not only exceeded the godly kingdom of Shumi's expectations, it also exceeded the world of bliss expectations. God Lord Shumi shook his head. He also didn't expect a Tendo to be more terrifying than a human. Proving the way. Proving the Tao without any pretense. God Lord Shumi sighed helplessly. The godly kingdom of Shumi didn't have a single expert of this level. Currently, the highest realm known in the godly to Shumi was false Tao, and that was the kind with a slight overstatement. Because to date, there was not a single true self-release realm expert in the entire godly kingdom of Shumi, not to mention a true Tao-confirming realm expert. A moment later, God Lord Shumi looked at Buddha Ancestor Searing Heart, Grandmaster, it looks like we have to give up. A true Tao-confirming expert, this kind of person was enough to make the godly kingdom of Shumi despair. Although the Tao scripture was tempting, it depended on who was holding it. In the hands of someone like Mu Niannian, the godly kingdom of Shumi had no intention of snatching it away. Their lives were more important. As if reading God Lord Shumi's thoughts, Buddha Ancestor Searing Heart suddenly said, "Your Majesty, do not be discouraged. That miss is entangled by the cause of misfortune, she can't even protect herself now." God Lord Shumi frowned, "Cause of misfortune?" Buddha Ancestor Searing Heart nodded. "According to what we know, that young Master Yi has the cause of misfortune, the first cause of misfortune since ancient times. Those who have this cause of misfortune will be entangled by karma and misfortune. Those related to him will also be affected. The cause of misfortune. That Miss Mu is not only related to him, but she also forcefully interfered in his matters, blocking the cause of misfortune for him. The current her is entangled by the cause of misfortune, moreover, she might be injured. An injured body. God Lord Shumi hastened to ask, "Why do you say so?" Buddha Ancestor Searing Heart answered softly, "My Buddhist family's almighty expert deduced it. According to what we know, she has blocked no less than 5 fifth-dimensional tribulations for the 5-dimensional universe. This fifth-dimensional tribulation is not only a heavenly tribulation, but also a tribulation of the human heart. She must have suffered a backlash." God Lord Shumi shook his head. "She is so powerful, how could she have suffered a backlash?" Buddha Ancestor Searing Heart was silent for a long time, then said, "She might not have been this powerful in the past." God Lord Shumi was silent. Buddha Ancestor Searing Heart continued, "A new fifth-dimensional tribulation is about to arrive. If she still wants to protect the 5-dimensional universe, then that will be our best chance." God Lord Shumi was silent. There was a huge risk in continuing to target Mu Niannian. No force could withstand the revenge of a Tao vindication expert. Buddha Ancestor Searing Heart looked at God Lord Shumi. Is God Lord thinking of giving up? God Lord Shumi was silent. Buddha Ancestor Searing Heart placed his palms together. "God Lord, have you ever thought that if that Yi Xian really opens the study room, that Miss Mu will obtain the Tao scripture?" Hearing this, God Lord Shumi's expression changed. Buddha Ancestor Searing Heart said softly, "We have no path of retreat, because there is no path in front of us. If we don't advance, we will die, and this Tao scripture is our only hope." God Lord Shumi was silent for a long time, then said, "Buddha Ancestor Searing Heart, is there any way to bring forward the fifth-dimensional tribulation?" Burning Heart nodded, "There is." When Yi Xian returned to the 5-dimensional universe, Lanxiu and Lian Wanli were still in seclusion. The two of them were inheriting the martial arts inheritance of the white-robed old man. He believed that when the two girls came out, their strength would definitely undergo a huge change. Wine, Situ, and Arrow were also in seclusion. The three of them had actually reached Release 1 before, but it wasn't true Release 1. But now, with Yi Jiming's guidance, the three of them began to advance to true Release 1. Once Lanxiu, Situ, and the others reached true Release 1, the overall strength of the 5-dimensional universe would undergo an earth-shattering change. In a courtyard, Yi Jiming looked at the Tao scripture that Yi Xian took out, silent. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. "Miss Yi, does this thing really come from the netherworld?" Yi Jiming turned to look at Yi Xian, sighing, "He really is the most unlucky person in history." Yi Xian, Yi Jiming looked at the Tao scripture, a trace of fear in his eyes. This thing is a treasure of the netherworld. The three-birth art contained within it is said to be the second Heart Sutra since ancient times. Yi Xian suddenly said, "What is the first Heart Sutra?" Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. Tao Scripture Heart Sutra. The 9th volume of the Tao Scripture is the core of the Tao Scripture, which is also the Heart Sutra. Tao Scripture Heart Sutra. Yi Xian chuckled. This three-birth art is very powerful, right? Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. Is there something wrong with your brain? Yi Xian's face darkened. Why are you scolding people? Yi Jiming pointed at the three-birth stone. Do you know what this thing will bring? Yi Xian hesitated, then said, bring trouble to the netherworld? Yi Jiming was expressionless. The position of this thing in the netherworld is equivalent to the position of the Tao Scripture in our world of the living. Yi Xian said in a low voice, then I will return it to them? Yi Jiming sneered, I'm afraid it's not that simple. At this moment, the three-birth stones suddenly trembled, and the 2 divine inscriptions on it appeared again. Seeing this, Yi Xian's eyelids twitched, and he hurriedly said, No. No. Hearing this, the divine inscriptions on the three-birth stone gradually disappeared. Seeing this, Yi Xian immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Damn, this guy doesn't want to go back to the netherworld. What should I do? If I let this stone go back, it will kill me. If I don't let it go back, the netherworld will kill me, and I can't do anything to this stone. I shouldn't have provoked this stupid thing in the first place. At this moment, Yi Jiming suddenly said, this stone escaped from the netherworld. I have to say, it is very powerful, escaping from the netherworld to the living world, and hiding for so many years. Speaking of this, she glanced at Yi Xian. This guy is the opposite of the netherworld. Possessing it is equivalent to opposing the netherworld. Yi Xian said in a low voice, I don't want to provoke the netherworld. Yi Jiming was puzzled, then why are you bringing it? Yi Xian smiled bitterly, Miss Yi, it wants to follow me. After a long silence, Yi Jiming said softly, I understand. It wants to use it to fight against the netherworld. Yi Xian hurriedly shook his head, I don't agree. Is it useful? Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian, it won't leave, do you have a way? Yi Xian fell silent. He really has no way. Yi Jiming said coldly, we can't offend the netherworld, but let me tell you, we can't even offend it now. Other than that Miss Mu, there is no one in this universe who can suppress it. And if it wants to risk its life, that Miss Mu might not be able to do anything to it. Saying so, she sized up Yi Xian. It doesn't have much ability, but its ability to cause trouble is not small. Yi Xian fell silent. Actually, he felt wronged. He really didn't want to provoke this thing. It was this thing that insisted on following him. It can only be said that disaster fell from the sky. Yi Jiming suddenly said, do you know about the netherworld? Yi Xian shook his head, I've heard of it, but I don't know the specifics. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian, I can tell you responsibly, that place is not to be provoked. Because there are true self-release realm experts and Tao-confirming realm experts there. This is not the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing is that they have experts above Tao-confirming realm. Above Tao-confirming realm. Hearing this, Yi Xian's eyelids twitched, damn, this is playing me to death. Should I give this thing to the realm of Pure Land and the godly kingdom of Shumi? Yi Xian felt that it was a feasible idea. Yi Jiming was about to speak, but a voice suddenly resounded. Humph. Yi Xian and Yi Jiming suddenly turned to look at the Rock of Three Lives. Meanwhile, a little girl walked out from within the rock. She was around 15 or 16 years old, wore a black dress, and had a ponytail that reached her hips. She had a pretty face, but her gaze was very sharp, and she was staring coldly at Yi Xian. As soon as the little girl appeared, the Rock of Three Lives suddenly vanished without a trace. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched when he saw the little girl. She's probably the equipment spirit of the Rock of Three Lives. Yi Jiming gazed at the little girl in silence. She wasn't afraid of the little girl, but she was afraid that the little girl would act rashly. She was especially afraid that the little girl would bring the netherworld to her. Chapter 1282. The little girl had her hands behind her back as she walked slowly over to Yi Xian and Yi Jiming. She sized up Yi Jiming and laughed coldly. What's so great about the netherworld? As she spoke, she gazed at Yi Xian. Don't be afraid of the netherworld. It's just a so-so. If they dare to come looking for me. Right, if they dare to come looking for me, then we'll kill them. Yi Xian glanced at her and said, Can you not follow me? The little girl immediately glared at Yi Xian and clenched her fists. Are you trying to drive me away? As soon as she finished speaking, 3 types of extremely powerful energy suddenly appeared here, and the world here instantly became illusory. This energy was sufficient to obliterate this entire world. Yi Xian hurriedly said, No, I have no intention of driving you away. No, I really don't. Yi Jiming glanced at Yi Xian. How cowardly. Yi Xian glared at Yi Jiming. Damn it, it's easier said than done. Meanwhile, the little girl withdrew her energy, took a deep breath, and then forced a kind smile onto her face as she gazed at Yi Xian. The netherworld really isn't scary. It's true. Yi Xian gazed at her in silence. The little girl spoke seriously. Don't be afraid of the netherworld. The people there are weak like chickens. If you go there, then you'll just be slaughtering indiscriminately. Yi Xian still didn't speak. Bullshit, keep bullshitting me. The little girl blinked and continued, If you don't believe me, I can take you to the netherworld. We'll kill the lord of the netherworld and become its ruler. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. Damn it. She's trying to trick me into attacking the netherworld. The little girl gazed at Yi Xian and blinked. Do you want to be the ruler of the netherworld? Yi Xian hurriedly shook his head. The little girl flared up. Why are you so cowardly? Yi Xian was flabbergasted. The little girl glared at Yi Xian. If you don't have a dream, what's the difference between you and a salted fish? Yi Xian, the little girl was furious. She paced back and forth a few times before glaring at Yi Xian. The underworld is really weak, really. Go and get that woman. We're going to attack the underworld. That woman was naturally Mu Niannian. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, If the netherworld is so weak, then I'll go myself. The little girl blinked and said, I'm not going. Yi Xian asked, Why? The little girl said, This is a secret, don't ask. Yi Xian, what the hell? At that moment, the little girl took out a map. She opened it and said, Look, this is the map of the netherworld. I've already planned everything. We will enter the gates of hell and kill our way to Fengdu City. Then, we will stab the lord of the underworld to death. That way, we will be the lord of the underworld. The entire underworld will be yours. It's very simple. Yi Xian was silent. Damn, does this woman think that I'm stupid? Yi Jiming looked at the map and said, This is indeed the map of the underworld. As she said, she looked at the little girl. You want to attack the underworld? The little girl nodded and said temptingly, Do you want to come along? Yi Jiming looked at the little girl. Aren't we a little too few? The little girl thought for a moment before she looked at Yi Xian. Then call more people. Yi Xian's face darkened. Is this woman a devil? Yi Jiming suddenly said, What do you think of his strength? The little girl looked at Yi Xian and shook her head. No. Yi Jiming said, Can he beat the lord of the underworld? The little girl shook her head. No. But. As she said, she looked at Yi Xian. Take out that sword. Yi Xian knew what sword the little girl was talking about. He took out the green-robed man's sword. The little girl pointed at the sword. The owner of this sword can beat the lord of the underworld. Let's call him along. Yi Xian's mouth twitched. Damn, so this woman is after Mu Niannian and the green-robed man. Yi Jiming looked at the green-robed man's sword and said, The owner of this sword is not here. The little girl frowned. Then where is he? Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, in a faraway place. The little girl asked, how far? Yi Xian said, yes, very, very far away. The little girl asked again, how far is very, very far? Yi Xian was completely speechless. This woman is better at asking questions than me. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, I think it's not impossible to attack the underworld, but we should take our time and make the plan more perfect. What do you think? The little girl blinked in excitement. You want to attack the underworld too? Yi Xian's mouth twitched. He smiled and said, the Lord of the Underworld is indeed tempting. The little girl nodded hurriedly. Yes, the Lord of the Underworld is fun. Yi Xian suddenly sighed. I also want to attack the underworld, but I can't now. The little girl frowned. Why? Yi Xian said seriously, because I have a lot of enemies now. They want to rob my study room. The little girl blinked. Rob? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Those people are bad. They want to rob me. The little girl flew into a rage. How dare you stop us from attacking the underworld? You deserve to die. Yi Xian hurriedly said, yes. Look, if we attack the underworld now, won't we be attacked from both sides? The little girl frowned. Being attacked from both sides. This is the biggest taboo of military strategists. Yi Xian gave a thumbs up. Amazing. Miss, you can see the problem at a glance. I'm impressed. The little girl waved her right hand and a large pile of ancient books appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian glanced at them. They were some ancient books on the art of war. The little girl pointed at herself. I'm familiar with the art of war. Yi Xian was speechless. The little girl said proudly, to be honest, I have 10,000 strategies to destroy the underworld, but I lack people. The kind that can fight. As she said that, she sized up Yi Xian. Do you have a lot of people? Yi Xian finally understood. This guy has his eyes on me. The little girl said again, the art of war says that we must first settle the internal affairs. I think we should settle the internal affairs first. Yi Xian hurriedly said, yes, Anne. Do you have any good strategies? The little girl thought for a while. Then she looked at Yi Xian after a while. Are there many enemies? Yi Xian said, there are several forces. The little girl quickly said, sow discord. We'll sow discord between them and let them kill each other. Then, we'll reap the benefits. Yi Xian gave a thumbs up again. Good, really good. As he said that, he hesitated. I have a presumptuous request. I hope you will agree to it. The little girl blinked. What presumptuous request? Yi Xian sternly said, to be honest, I have formed a force called the Fifth Dimension Alliance. I have millions of troops under my command, but I lack a military advisor. Military advisor. The little girl blinked again and again. Yi Xian slightly bowed to the little girl. I want you to be my military advisor and give me advice for the fifth dimension. Hearing Yi Xian's words, the little girl suddenly became excited. She was about to nod, but she seemed to have thought of something and shook her head. No, no. I can't easily leave the mountain. Yi Xian was somewhat puzzled. Why? The little girl smiled without saying anything. How could Yi Xian not understand? He immediately bowed again. Mrs. Wisdom is unparalleled. If my fifth dimension has your help, we will certainly be able to establish a foundation for 10,000 generations, create 10,000 generations of peace, and dominate 10,000 worlds. The little girl walked back and forth with her hands clasped behind her back. She seemed to be hesitating. Yi Xian said, if you don't agree, I won't leave. The little girl remained silent for a long time before sighing. Fine, it's rare for you to be so considerate. I will agree. Yi Xian was instantly wild with joy. With your help, it is my fortune, Yi Xian, the fortune of my fifth dimension. By the way, how should I address you? The little girl said, My name is Dao Sansheng. Just call me Sansheng. Yi Xian nodded. Military Advisor Sansheng. Military Advisor Sansheng. The little girl was very satisfied with this title and nodded repeatedly. As if thinking of something, Dao Sansheng asked again, How many people do we have? Yi Xian thought about it and then told Dao Sansheng about the overall strength of the fifth dimension. Dao Sansheng was silent for a long time, then his expression became a little serious. It seems that we are still at a disadvantage. Yi Xian quickly said, Yes. Dao Sansheng said seriously, It is not suitable for us to make enemies now. It seems that we can only temporarily put aside the matter of attacking the underworld. Hearing this, Yi Xian heaved a sigh of relief. This guy finally gave up on attacking the underworld for the time being. At this time, Dao Sansheng said, I think we should go to the godly kingdom of Shumi. Yi Xian blinked. Why? Dao Sansheng said, To instigate a rebellion. Yi Xian, Dao Sansheng said seriously, I have a plan. The first step is to instigate a rebellion in the godly kingdom of Shumi. The second step is to subdue the Western Paradise. The third step is to attack the underworld and subdue it. The fourth step is to dominate the universe. Yi Xian was dumbfounded. Is this possible? Dao Sansheng nodded. Come, let's go to the godly kingdom of Shumi. Then, she pulled Yi Xian away. Yi Xian hurriedly said, Are the two of us going? Dao Sansheng blinked. Is there a problem? Yi Xian hesitated, then said, What if they attack us? Dao Sansheng sneered. A gentleman uses his tongue, not his fists. If they dare to attack us and don't follow my plan, I will kill them. Let's go. Then, she pulled Yi Xian away. Soon, the two disappeared into the horizon. Yi Jiming shook his head. My God. Two of them. P.S. To be honest, I also have a plan. It is a plan to get first place in the monthly votes. Do you want to hear it? Chapter 1283. Dao Sansheng was not joking. She was really going to take Yi Xian to the Sumer kingdom. Yi Xian panicked. He was afraid of being beaten up by the group. In front of the Dao world's cosmic barrier, Yi Xian pointed at it. This is very sturdy. Dao Sansheng glanced at the cosmic barrier before throwing a punch at it. Boom! Under Yi Xian's shocked gaze, she punched a hole in the cosmic barrier. Dao Sansheng looked at Yi Xian. It's not very sturdy either. Yi Xian was speechless. Dao Sansheng led Yi Xian into the space tunnel. Yi Xian took a look at Dao Sansheng. He was shocked. He was confident that he could open the cosmic barrier, but he was not confident that he could do it so easily. However, this fellow had broken it with one punch. This fellow was likely to be at the Dao validation realm. Dao Sansheng suddenly asked, Do we really have more than 1 million people? Yi Xian collected his thoughts and nodded. Yes. All the experts in the fifth dimension are under my command. Then, he looked at Dao Sansheng. Lady Sansheng, is the underworld really weak? Dao Sansheng blinked. It should be very weak. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Sansheng, you should know that if we underestimate the enemy's strength, it will bring disaster to us. Dao Sansheng fell silent. Yi Xian thought about it and said, Even if the underworld is weak, we should still take our opponent seriously. What do you think? Seeing that Yi Xian had given him a way out, Dao Sansheng hurried to follow his lead. He nodded and said, Yes, we must take our opponent seriously. We must. The underworld is not that weak. Yi Xian suddenly asked casually, Lady Sansheng, is the three-birth art very powerful? Yes, Dao Sansheng was about to answer, but she quickly stopped and looked at Yi Xian. Don't tell me you want to cultivate the three-birth art? Yi Xian smiled. I'm just asking. Dao Sansheng did not speak. Yi Xian asked again, can I cultivate it? Dao Sanqing shook her head. Not yet. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? Dao Sanqing said, you must be at least at the Dao validation realm to cultivate it. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Why do I need to be in the doctrine level to cultivate? Because it involves the past, present, and future lives. It is very complicated. You can't learn it without reaching the Dao validation realm. Yi Xian still wanted to ask something, but the two of them had already left the space tunnel. As soon as the two of them left, a middle-aged man appeared in front of them. Upon seeing Yi Xian, the middle-aged man's expression changed drastically. Yi Xian, right now, the godly kingdom of Sumeru was still very afraid of Yi Xian. No, it should be said that they were afraid of Mu Niannian. Yi Xian remained silent. Dao Sanqing interjected, go tell that godly kingdom of godly Mtishumi's heavenly lord to come see me. Tell him to hurry. I am very busy. Yi Xian was speechless. The middle-aged man looked at Dao Sanqing. Who is it? Dao Sanqing was about to speak when Yi Xian said, she is the fifth universe's military advisor. She represents the fifth universe. Tell the god of the Shumi kingdom to come out and see her. Dao Sanqing nodded. I am the fifth universe's military advisor. The fifth universe's military advisor. The middle-aged man frowned. He looked at Dao Sanqing and left. Dao Sanqing glanced at the surroundings and said, the energy here is very pure. Yi Xian nodded. The Ling Qi here was much purer than in the fifth universe. Dao Sanqing suddenly said. I think we can build our base here. Yi Xian glanced at Dao Sanqing. I'm afraid they won't agree. Dao Sanqing patted his chest. Watch me. Yi Xian was speechless. Right at this moment, the space around the two of them suddenly trembled. Very quickly, many powerful auras appeared around them. Yi Xian looked into the distance. A middle-aged man appeared out of thin air. It was the god of the Shumi kingdom. The god of the Shumi kingdom looked at Yi Xian. Where is Miss Mu? Yi Xian smiled. She did not come. The god narrowed his eyes. So she came alone? Dao Sanqing said suddenly. Is she ignoring me? The god looked at Dao Sanqing. Who is it? Yi Xian quickly introduced. She is the fifth universe's military advisor. Military advisor? The god frowned. What the hell? Yi Xian was speechless. Dao Sanqing sneered. He punched out. Punch. Boom. A destructive force swept through the battlefield. Almost in an instant, the world within a radius of several tens of thousands of miles shattered into nothingness. As for the Divine Master, he immediately retreated several tens of thousands of feet away. As soon as he stopped, the physical body he had just cultivated shattered, and only his soul was left. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned when they witnessed this scene. Yi Xian wasn't surprised because he was mentally prepared. In the distance, the Divine Lord stared at Dao Sanqing in a daze. At this moment, he was quite stunned. This woman shattered my body with a single strike. Where did this terrifying figure come from? Dao Sanqing glanced at the god. I allow you to surrender. Surrender. The Divine Master was stunned, and then he said in a low voice, who is it? Dao Sanqing spoke coldly. Didn't he say it just now? I'm the fifth universe's military advisor. I have 1,000,000 soldiers behind me. Understand? Yi Xian was speechless. The god stared at Dao Sanqing. She's a Dao confirming realm expert. Dao Sanqing remained expressionless. I'll ask you one last time. Do you want to surrender or not? The god's expression became ferocious. Just one person? Dao Sanqing slowly clenched his right hand. At this moment, a pillar of light that was thousands of meters long suddenly appeared in the distant horizon. Within the pillar of light, an illusory giant blade appeared. In the next moment, the giant blade tore through the sky and slashed towards Dao Sanqing. Dao Sanqing didn't dodge, nor did she attack. She just allowed the enormous blade to slash her. Bang! The giant blade shattered with a loud bang, but Dao Sanqing remained unscathed. The expressions of the experts from the Shumi Kingdom changed when they witnessed this scene. Dao Sanqing suddenly vanished on the spot. The god's expression changed drastically. He wanted to retreat, but it was too late. A hand was wrapped around his throat. It was Dao Sanqing's hand. Dao Sanqing gazed at the god's master. "I'll give you one last chance. Do you want to surrender or not?" Yi Xian was speechless. The god's master glared at Dao Sanqing. The Shumi Kingdom will never surrender. As soon as he finished speaking, a powerful aura erupted from his soul. Soon, his soul turned blood red. Ancestral blood. A trace of surprise flashed across Yi Xian's eyes. This guy's bloodline has merged with his soul. Dao Sanqing furrowed his brows. She clenched her right fist. Bang! That god master's soul exploded, but his blood escaped. Dao Sanqing grabbed at the air and a ball of blood appeared in her hand. It was burning, but Dao Sanqing was completely fine. Dao Sanqing turned to Yi Xian as if she had thought of something. "Do you want to absorb it?" Yi Xian blinked. "Can I?" Dao Sanqing nodded. "The power of his bloodline is very special. You can absorb it." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then said, "Is my bloodline power more powerful, or his?" Dao Sanqing blinked. "How can his rubbish bloodline compare to yours?" Yi Xian was speechless. Dao Sanqing sized up Yi Xian. "Your bloodline is the most powerful bloodline I have ever seen. Moreover, it is constantly getting stronger. By the way, is our ancestor still alive?" Yi Xian shook his head. "I don't know either." Dao Sanqing thought for a while and said, "We can look for him. Then, we can ask our ancestor to follow us to attack the underworld. I think our ancestor might be more powerful than that fish-eating woman." Yi Xian blinked. "How powerful is that fish-eating woman?" Dao Sanqing shook her head. "I don't know. Anyway, she is very powerful. I can't beat her. Remember, bring her along when we attack the underworld. She can follow the master of the underworld." Yi Xian looked at Dao Sanqing. "Can't I?" Dao Sanqing blinked and waved her hand. "That trash is not worthy of my attention." Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, a white-haired old man suddenly appeared in front of Dao Sanqing. The white-haired old man looked at Dao Sanqing. "How should I address you, miss?" Dao Sanqing looked at the white-haired old man. "The godly kingdom of Shumi, are you surrendering or not?" The white-haired old man looked at Dao Sanqing and shook his head. "The godly kingdom of Shumi has never surrendered." With that, he turned and said softly, "Go out." As his voice fell, in the distant godly kingdom of godly Shumi's main city, 4 blood-colored pillars of light shot up to the sky. In an instant, the entire sky was dyed crimson, and within the 4 pillars of light, 4 blood-colored longswords gradually materialized. At this moment, Yi Xian's expression turned solemn. Because he sensed danger. What kind of formation was this? The white-haired old man looked at Dao Sanqing. "Miss, this is the great formation of gods. If you retreat now, it is not too late." He did not want to fight this woman head-on. Dao Sanqing looked at the 4 blood-red longswords and punched out. Bang! Everyone watched as the 4 blood-red swords exploded into pieces and transformed into nothingness. Yi Xian was speechless. The white-haired old man and the others were stunned as well. "They're gone just like that?" Dao Sanqing gazed at the white-haired old man. "This thing doesn't seem to work." The white-haired old man took a deep glance at Dao Sanqing and said, "Invite the ancestor." As soon as he finished speaking. Bang! An extremely powerful aura suddenly appeared in the depths of the starry sky, and then the world around it instantly became illusory. Moreover, the blood of many experts from the godly kingdom of Shumi actually started to tremble. It was fear. The ancestors' blood had descended. Dao Sanxing frowned slightly as he gazed at the powerful aura. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Why can all these powers summon their ancestor? Can I summon my ancestor as well? Should I give it a try? Chapter 1284. Ancestral Summon. He'd had this thought for a very long time. But he knew that it wasn't reliable. Because he didn't even know who his ancestor was. Actually, he was very curious. Who was his ancestor? His bloodline was quite formidable, so logically speaking, his ancestor should be very formidable as well. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled, and he stopped thinking about it. He looked towards the distant sky. At this moment, his bloodline was gradually trembling, but it wasn't being suppressed by the ancestral bloodline. The bloodline wasn't able to affect him at all, but it couldn't be underestimated. Yi Xian gazed at Dao Sanxing. Dao Sanxing looked up into the sky and spoke softly, "It looks very formidable." Yi Xian was speechless. Right at this moment, a middle-aged man suddenly walked over from the sky. He wore a dark robe that had a golden dragon embroidered on it, and he possessed an extraordinary imposing aura. The first divine master of the godly kingdom of Shumi. All the experts of the godly kingdom of Shumi knelt down in unison when they saw him, and some members of the imperial family even knelt on the ground. It was bloodline suppression. They were helpless against the ancestral bloodline, and it was the ancestral bloodline of their own clan. It could be said that their success was due to their bloodline, and their downfall was due to their bloodline. Because their ancestors were too strong, and their descendants were practically unable to surpass this bloodline. To a certain extent, this bloodline had become a shackle to them. The middle-aged man waved his right hand lightly in midair, and then the bloodline aura within him instantly vanished without a trace. The experts of the godly kingdom of Shumi instantly felt much more at ease. The middle-aged man's eyes narrowed slightly as he gazed at Dao Sanxing. Dao Shi. Dao Shi. Yi Xian's face fell. This fellow actually recognized Dao Sanxing. Dao Sanxing was slightly surprised as he gazed at the middle-aged man. "You recognize me?" The middle-aged man replied, "I've been to the nether dimension. According to my knowledge, you escaped from there." Dao Sanxing's eyes narrowed slightly. "You're the one who escaped." "I fought my way out. I fought my way out." As soon as she finished speaking, she smashed her fist forward. Bang! A powerful force swept through the surroundings. The middle-aged man smashed his fist forward as well, and a blood-red fist flashed out from his fist. Boom! The space in front of the middle-aged man and Dao Sanxing exploded and turned into nothingness. But soon, the space returned to normal. The middle-aged man was still there. He had only retreated a few hundred feet, but he had taken on Dao Sanxing's punch. The Dao Proving Realm. Yi Xian took a look at the man in the middle. This man was definitely at the Dao Validation Realm, and he was definitely one without any flaws. Otherwise, he would not have been able to take a punch from Dao Sanxing with just a wisp of his soul. It seemed that he still could not underestimate these ancient powers. Just as Dao Sanxing was about to attack again, the middle-aged man suddenly laughed and said, "If you attack again, I will inform the underworld that you are here." Dao Sanxing frowned. "Are you threatening me?" The middle-aged man smiled. "No, I'm afraid of you. This wisp of my soul can't defeat you, but if you continue to attack, aren't you afraid of attracting the experts of the netherworld?" Dao Sanxing fell silent. The netherworld. Yi Xian glanced at Dao Sanxing. He could tell that the little girl was afraid of the underworld. If she was afraid of the netherworld even though she possessed terrifying strength, then he could imagine how terrifying it was. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man spoke again. "We have no intention of becoming enemies with you, and we don't want to offend the netherworld as well. Dao Sanqing spoke indifferently, I want to attack the netherworld. The middle-aged man's eyelids twitched. He hesitated for a moment and said, you want to attack the netherworld? Dao Sanqing spoke coldly, can't I? The middle-aged man asked, by yourself? Dao Sanqing pointed at Yi Xian, and him. Yi Xian was speechless. The middle-aged man glanced at Yi Xian, and a trace of surprise flashed through his eyes, the cause of disaster. Yi Xian glanced at the middle-aged man and remained silent. The middle-aged man stared at Yi Xian, you're not simple at all. Yi Xian smiled. Are you trying to ask why I'm still alive? The middle-aged man looked deeply at Yi Xian, then turned to the white-haired old man beside him. Do the godly kingdom of Shumi have any enmity with the two of them? The white-haired old man hesitated for a moment, then told him about Yi Xian's Dao scripture. A moment later, the middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian with a trace of surprise in his eyes. You have the Dao scripture. Yi Xian shook his head quickly, I did in the past, but I don't now. The realm of bliss has taken it away. The white-haired old man glanced at Yi Xian, young Master Yi, no one here is stupid. Why do you have to play games? Yi Xian said indifferently, believe it or not, it's up to you. In any case, he would never admit to this matter even if he was beaten to death. Once he admitted it, the Dao world would lean towards the godly kingdom of Shumi and the realm of bliss. At this time, Dao Sanqing suddenly walked to Yi Xian and said softly, what should we do? Yi Xian said in a low voice, can you defeat him? Dao Sanqing nodded, I can. But... Yi Xian said, are you afraid that he will call the experts from the underworld? Dao Sanqing nodded, we are in the dark, and the underworld is out in the open. If the underworld knows that I am here. Of course, I'm not afraid of them, but I feel that if we fight the underworld now, we will be surrounded by enemies. Yi Xian quickly nodded, yes. So, I think we can retreat strategically. What do you think? Retreat strategically. Dao Sanqing blinked, I think it's possible. Let's go. Then, she pulled Yi Xian away. Yi Xian suddenly said, don't be in such a hurry. Dao Sanqing looked at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian said with a smile, we can't come here for nothing, right? Dao Sanqing blinked, you mean we should take something with us? Yi Xian leaned over to Dao Sanqing's ear, if we are going to attack the underworld in the future, we will need a lot of resources. Then, he looked in the direction of the godly kingdom of Shumi. The godly kingdom of Shumi is very rich. We can take some resources with us to strengthen our overall strength. Dao Sanqing blinked and said, that's very thoughtful. Then, she turned to the white-haired old man and the middle-aged man, take out all the valuables of the godly kingdom of Shumi. Everyone was stunned. What was she trying to do? Was she trying to rob them? The white-haired old man stared at Dao Sanqing, are you a bandit? Dao Sanqing was taken aback, then looked at Yi Xian, isn't it inappropriate for us to rob others? Yi Xian said seriously, who said we are robbing? We are borrowing. Dao Sanqing quickly nodded, yes. Borrowing. Then, she looked at the white-haired old man, borrowing. We are borrowing. Not robbing. The white-haired old man nearly vomited blood in anger, no. Dao Sanqing looked at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian looked at the middle-aged man, since you are not borrowing, then we will fight. Dao Sanqing did not waste any time, her hands suddenly clenched into fists, and in an instant, the world around them turned illusory. Seeing this, Yi Xian's eyelids twitched, these three forces again. These three forces were enough to destroy the heaven and earth, even he was wary of them. It could be said that these three forces were more powerful than his Dao scripture martial skill. The middle-aged man's eyes turned solemn, these three forces were enough to destroy the godly kingdom of Shumi's origin source. On the other hand, even if he could block these three forces, this wisp of his soul would disappear. This woman's strength was much stronger than he had imagined. Seeing that Dao Sanqing was about to attack, the middle-aged man suddenly said, borrow. The white-haired old man looked at the middle-aged man with an ugly expression. He knew that his ancestor would not be able to stop this woman. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, Dao Sanqing stopped, but just as she was about to speak, Yi Xian said, "Let's go get them." With that said, he and Dao Sanqing disappeared from the spot. The two of them bolted towards the godly kingdom of Shumi's imperial palace. Along the way, no one dared to stop them. The middle-aged man did not stop them either. Most importantly, he couldn't. Just like that, Yi Xian and Dao Sanqing plundered the godly kingdom of Shumi in a frenzy. The two of them took whatever they could see. Other than that, they forced the godly kingdom of Shumi's experts to hand over their spatial rings. At first, some resisted, but after witnessing Dao Sanqing's terrifying strength, no one dared to resist. In order to borrow the good stuff, Yi Xian called Xiao Linger out as well. Xiao Linger could sense some of the good stuff. At first, Xiao Linger was a little reluctant, but soon, she became more enthusiastic than Yi Xian and Dao Sanqing. This search lasted for a full 2 hours. They found more than 300 spatial rings, all of which were borrowed from the experts. Other than that, there were also some that were looted from the godly kingdom of Shumi's imperial palace's treasury. It had to be said that Yi Xian had seen great storms and waves, but when he saw the treasures of the godly kingdom of Shumi, he couldn't keep his cool. This was too terrifying. With these treasures and resources, the fifth dimension could nurture countless super experts. Especially the middle-level experts, the fifth dimension would undergo earth-shattering changes. The experts of the godly kingdom of Shumi felt extremely sullen at this moment. They could only watch as Yi Xian, Dao Sanqing, and Xiao Linger looted the godly kingdom of Shumi without the slightest scruple. No one dared to make a move because the middle-aged man did not. Within 2 hours, the godly kingdom of Shumi's imperial palace and the imperial palace were all plundered clean. Anything that was slightly valuable was taken away. Yi Xian brought Dao Sanqing and Xiao Linger to the middle-aged man and the white-haired old man. The white-haired old man and the others stared fixedly at Yi Xian and Dao Sanqing. Their gazes were as sharp as knives, capable of killing. Yi Xian said with a straight face, "Everyone, Yi Xian, value honor above all else. Today, I borrowed these things from the godly kingdom of Shumi, and I will return them. Really, you can rest assured." With that said, he turned around and disappeared into the horizon with Dao Sanqing. At the end of the horizon, Dao Sanqing pulled Yi Xian's arm. "Are you really going to return them?" Yi Xian said with a straight face, "We are not bandits. Of course we have to return what we borrowed." Dao Sanqing asked, "Then when will you return them?" Yi Xian blinked. "In my next life." Dao Sanqing. P.S. Can I borrow some monthly tickets? I will return them. Really? Chapter 1285. In the next life. Dao Sanqing looked at Yi Xian and winked. "You're so cunning." Yi Xian laughed and disappeared into the horizon with Dao Sanqing. Although he did not destroy the godly kingdom of Shumi this time, he was satisfied. The wealth he took from the godly kingdom of Shumi was enough to change the entire 5 dimensions. The two of them left quickly and disappeared into the horizon in the blink of an eye. The godly kingdom of Shumi. The experts of the godly kingdom of Shumi had ugly expressions on their faces as if they had eaten 10 caddies of dung. Humiliation. When had the godly kingdom of Shumi suffered such humiliation? It could be said that the godly kingdom of Shumi had never suffered such humiliation since its founding. In fact, when Yi Xian and Dao Sanqing left, the experts of the godly kingdom of Shumi wanted to chase after them, but they were stopped by the middle-aged man. Everyone looked at their ancestor. The middle-aged man said softly, "Do you want to die?" The white-haired old man said in a low voice, "Ancestor." The middle-aged man looked at the horizon in the distance, his eyes were solemn. "That woman is not an ordinary person. If you chase after her, you will die in vain." The white-haired old man's face was gloomy. "Ancestor, can we contact the underworld?" He could see that the woman was afraid of the underworld. The middle-aged man looked at the white-haired old man. If my main body was here, we might be able to contact it, but now, you do not have the ability to contact the underworld. That place is not a place you can set foot in. Let alone you, even Tao vindication experts do not dare to set foot in there. The white-haired old man's face darkened. If we cannot contact the underworld, that woman was powerful enough to make people despair. Moreover, there was another woman behind Yi Xian, the fifth dimension Tendo. That woman's terror was no less than the woman just now. The middle-aged man suddenly said, "Are you willing to give up on the Tao scripture?" The white-haired old man was taken aback, then he smiled bitterly. "Ancestor," the middle-aged man was silent for a long time, then he said softly, "I can understand, after all, even I will not give up." Then, he looked at the horizon in a daze. Tao scripture, the white-haired old man looked at the middle-aged man without saying a word. After a long time, the middle-aged man suddenly spoke in a low voice. The white-haired old man suddenly raised his head when he heard this, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. In next to no time, the disbelief in his eyes turned into wild joy. After leaving the godly kingdom of Shumi, Yi Xian and Dao Sanxing returned to the fifth dimension. Along the way, although Dao Sanxing had obtained a lot of wealth, she was still a little unhappy, as her perfect plan had been disrupted. Yi Xian looked at Dao Sanxing and said with a smile, "Sanxing, don't be discouraged. There are bound to be some bumps on the road to greatness, but these are just trivial matters. What do you think?" Dao Sanxing remained silent. Yi Xian continued, "You are our fifth dimension's military advisor. Your words and actions can decide the life and death of millions of people. Therefore, you cannot be discouraged." Dao Sanxing shook his head. "I'm not discouraged." As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian. "In your opinion, what should we do next?" Yi Xian said solemnly, "I think that we should first strengthen our strength and prepare for the future." Dao Zuxing clenched his fists. "You're right. Previously, when I took a look, the overall strength of our fifth dimension is a bit weak. I feel that we need to increase the overall strength of our fifth dimension." Yi Xian quickly replied, "Yes." As he spoke, the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. "Now that we have these resources, we can greatly increase the overall strength of our people." Dao Sanxing looked at Yi Xian and said, "You also need to improve your strength." Yi Xian was silent. In fact, his current strength had already reached a bottleneck. To put it bluntly, among all the people Huang Xiaolong had encountered so far, only this Dao Sanxing couldn't win against that Mu Niannian. Others, even if it was that godly Shumi ancestor, Huang Xiaolong had the strength to fight. Not only was he at the true escape, but his sword Dao had also reached the realm of sword transformation. At present, in terms of the way of the sword, apart from Mu Niannian, his attainment in the way of the sword was definitely the highest. However, he still didn't want to reveal his strength too early. Currently, whether it was the godly kingdom of Shumi or the realm of Western Paradise, their estimation of his strength was still the same as before. That was his advantage. As Mu Niannian had said, if one didn't have invincible strength, it was best to know how to hide one's strength. At this time, Dao Sanxing suddenly said, "When you reach the Dao validation realm, I will teach you the art of 3 lives and let you possess the power of 3 lives." Yi Xian looked at Dao Sanxing. "The power of 3 lives?" Dao Sanxing nodded. "The power of 3 lives is the strongest power in the world." Yi Xian hesitated and then asked, "Then do you know about the Dao scripture?" Dao scripture. Dao Sanxing looked at Yi Xian. "Are you talking about the mysterious book in the world of the living?" Yi Xian nodded. Dao Sanxing waved his hand. "That is trash." Yi Xian, Dao Sanxing looked at Yi Xian and said solemnly, "The art of 3 lives is the strongest." Yi Xian nodded. "Yes, yes. But do I have to reach the Dao validation realm to cultivate it?" Dao Sanxing nodded. "I'm doing this for your own good. If you cultivate it now, your body won't be able to withstand the power of 3 lives. Moreover, there is a kind of power in your body that you haven't fully absorbed. Yi Xian opened his palm and a ball of golden light appeared in his hand. Is this it? Dao Sanqing nodded. Yes. Yi Xian fell silent. The power of Buddhism. Dao Sanqing was referring to the power of Buddhism in his body. In fact, he also knew that there was something wrong with the power of Buddhism. Although he had reached the level of spiritual insight, he had never seriously cultivated the power of Buddhism. Therefore, the power of Buddhism in his body was a little messy. Dao Sanqing added, and your blood, the power of your bloodline is also very strong. You have to learn to control it. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. He really couldn't control the power of his bloodline. As the two conversed, they returned to the Alliance Hall. Yi Xian called Guan Yin over and had Guan Yin bring Dao Sanqing to inspect the experts of the fifth dimension. Dao Sanqing was very interested in the army of the fifth dimension. Yi Xian also specially told Guan Yin not to be careless with this military advisor Dao Sanqing. He had to make her feel respect. He also discovered that although this little girl was strong, she was actually quite simple-minded. She needed to be coaxed. As soon as Yi Xian returned to his room, Yi Jiming appeared in front of him. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. How was it? Yi Xian smiled and told him what happened in the godly kingdom of Shumi. Yi Jiming frowned. That person knows about the underworld. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. Many people know about the underworld. Yi Jiming shook his head. Not only does that person know about the underworld, she also knows about Dao Sanqing. This means that she has been to the underworld before. And not everyone can go to the underworld. Dao Sanqing escaped and the people of the underworld might not expect her to escape to the world of the living. But if they know that Dao Sanqing is in the world of the living. Yi Xian said solemnly, Miss Yi, we can't go to the underworld easily, but the people of the underworld can't come here easily either, right? Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. You're right, but that was in the past. In the past? Yi Xian frowned. You mean they can come here now? Yi Jiming said solemnly, do you know what separates the underworld from the living? The cosmic barrier? Yi Xian said. Yi Jiming shook his head. What's more terrifying than the cosmic barrier is the Dao world. Yi Xian frowned. Dao world? Yi Jiming nodded. It's a boundary formed by the great Dao and it's extremely terrifying. It can be said that there was a period of time when the people of the living couldn't go to the underworld and the people of the underworld couldn't go to the world of the living either. But it's different now. Yi Xian was confused. Why? Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. Because many great Daos are collapsing. For example, this good and evil reincarnation Dao. I told you before that this Dao has collapsed. Good people might not be rewarded and evil people might not be punished. I don't understand this good and evil reincarnation Dao and some Daos have been reversed. This Dao world has been reversed and its power is not as great as before. Yi Xian asked curiously, who? Yi Jiming smiled. I don't know about that. I only know that many great Daos have collapsed. Also, those who can threaten your life now are those who can reverse the great Daos. You can't fight them now. She paused and continued, I'm guessing that Mu Niannian might not be able to reverse the great Daos. Of course, it's just my guess. That woman is too sinister and unfathomable. Yi Xian smiled. Miss Yi, Yi Jiming is a good person. Yi Jiming said indifferently, that's for you. Yi Xian nodded. In any case, I think she's a good person. Yi Jiming didn't want to continue this topic. After the great Dao laws in the Dao world have been reversed, it's not impossible for the people of the underworld to come to the world of the living. Of course, the people of the living can also go to the underworld. However, ordinary people definitely can't. That's because if the people of the living step into the underworld, their bodies will rot. Only Dao validation experts can resist that kind of corrosive power. And after entering the nether world, that place is incomparably dangerous. The experts in the nether world are much stronger than you can imagine. Yi Xian said softly, no wonder Big Sister Nian said that she's unwilling to offend the underworld. He seemed to have thought of something as he spoke, and then he took out the soul-suppressing sword. He gazed at Yi Jiming and said excitedly, Miss Yi, if I take this sword to the river of forgetfulness, do you think I'll be able to absorb all the wandering souls and evil ghosts there? Let me tell you, this sword of mine is extremely powerful. Yi Jiming glanced at the sword and said, yes. Yi Xian was overjoyed when he heard this, and he asked excitedly, really? Yi Jiming said, yes, everything can happen in a dream. Yi Xian was speechless. Chapter 1286. The Netherworld. Yi Xian's heart sank. From Yi Jiming's words, Huang Xiaolong understood that the Netherworld had the ability to come to the world of the living. Yi Jiming suddenly interjected, your best option now is to let her go. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. Yi Jiming softly said, leaving her here will bring endless trouble. Yi Xian smiled, Miss Yi, what about you? Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian, what about me? Yi Xian smiled faintly, Sansheng's troubles came from the netherworld, where are your troubles coming from? Yi Jiming fell silent. Yi Xian said with a smile, are you in less trouble than her? Yi Jiming shook his head. Yi Xian shook his head, Miss Yi, I'm more curious about your identity and background. Yi Jiming's voice was indifferent, if you really want to know, I can tell you. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming, whirling world? Or the Milky Way world? Yi Jiming shook his head, neither. Yi Xian frowned, neither? Yi Jiming nodded. Yi Xian was about to speak when Guan Yin walked in. Stopping in front of Yi Xian, she opened her palm, give it to me. Yi Xian was puzzled, what? Guan Yin glared at Yi Xian, Sansheng said that you've borrowed a lot of treasures from the godly kingdom of Shumi. Yi Xian smiled and passed all the spatial rings to Guan Yin. There were more than 500 of them. When Guan Yin saw the treasures in the spatial rings, she sucked in a breath of cold air. She looked at Yi Xian, you've borrowed all the treasures from the godly kingdom of Shumi? Yi Xian smiled sheepishly and was about to speak when Guan Yin interjected, do you know how important these things are to us? Yi Xian nodded. In fact, the fifth dimension faced a huge problem, and that was the lack of cultivation resources. This was because the resources of the spirits of 9 dead and the other races had already been squeezed dry. It could be said that the cultivation progress of many experts had slowed down. However, things were different now. With these cultivation resources, the strength of countless experts in the fifth dimension would experience a qualitative breakthrough. These cultivation resources were a lifesaver. Guan Yin took a deep breath, put the spatial rings away, and said, we need time now. Yi Xian was silent. Coincidentally, what they lacked the most right now was time. Can you give me 2 years? Guan Yin asked solemnly. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. I'm afraid not. Guan Yin fell silent. Yi Xian said softly, do your best. Just do your best. Guan Yin nodded and turned to leave. She would be very busy in the coming days. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. You don't have 2 years. Yi Xian nodded. I know. Yi Jiming said, your current strength has reached a bottleneck. If you want to break through again, it will be impossible in a short period of time. However, you can increase your strength elsewhere. Yi Xian was curious. Elsewhere? Yi Jiming said, to get the indestructible Buddha body from the realm of ultimate bliss. Yi Xian frowned. Indestructible Buddha body? Yi Jiming nodded. That body cultivation technique can be said to be second only to the Dao scripture body refinement technique and the Yin world's myriad Yin body. Yi Xian hurriedly asked, Dao scripture body refinement technique? Yi Jiming said, there is a Dao scripture body refinement technique. If you can successfully cultivate it, you will have a Dao body, a true Dao body. This body can be said to be the most ancient body in the world. Today, your physical body is the strongest. Even a Tao-confirming expert would find it difficult to injure you. Moreover, this body has another strong point: it is untainted by all karma. Of course, except for disasters. Yi Xian was speechless. Yi Jiming said, most importantly, this body can suppress some of the Yin arts of the Yin world. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, is the realm of ultimate bliss weaker than the Yin world? Yi Jiming shook his head. The current realm of extreme bliss can't be compared to the underworld, but there was a period of time in the past when the realm of extreme bliss was extremely terrifying. At that time, the realm of extreme bliss could completely contend against the underworld. Of course, if they really fought, they might not be able to win. However, it was not like now, where there is no possibility of fighting. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, then it declined? Yi Jiming nodded. There was a serious problem within the realm of ultimate bliss. At that time, an extremely powerful monk brought a few Buddhist monks to the Yin world. Yi Xian frowned. To the Yin world? Yi Jiming nodded. That Buddha made a great wish. Saying so, she glanced at Yi Xian. The realm of ultimate bliss has some relationship with the Yin world. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly understood why the abbot knew about the Yin world. Yi Jiming said again, the departure of that monk had a huge impact on the realm of ultimate bliss. Later on, some of the monks went into seclusion to comprehend, causing the realm of ultimate bliss to decline. The infinite Buddha body was created by that monk. Once it is mastered, it will be protected by the infinite Buddha, which is a great counter to the Yin world. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, if I go to the realm of ultimate bliss like this, they probably won't give it to me. Yi Jiming shrugged. Aren't you good at bluffing? Go bluff them. Yi Xian was speechless. Yi Jiming said, why don't you go look for the Tao scripture, the one with the Tao scripture? Yi Xian said, do you know where the rest of the Tao scripture is? Yi Jiming said, there's one in the realm of ultimate bliss. Yi Xian glanced at Yi Jiming. Damn it, this woman wants me to look for cultivation techniques, but the Tao scripture is the real deal. Yi Jiming said again, but the people of the realm of ultimate bliss don't know that they have the Tao scripture. Yi Xian frowned, what do you mean? Yi Jiming said, the reason why the realm of ultimate bliss was so strong was because they had a Tao scripture, the fate scripture. At that time, the senior monk who obtained the Tao scripture was a true senior monk. Although he knew that it was a Tao scripture, he didn't say it out loud because he knew that if he said it out loud, the Western paradise would be plunged into a bloody storm. So, he slowly cultivated it himself and merged the Tao scripture into some Buddhist scriptures. This way, the people of the realm of ultimate bliss learned the Tao scripture but didn't know it was a Tao scripture. This saved the realm of ultimate bliss a lot of trouble. She paused for a moment before continuing, actually, the people of the realm of ultimate bliss don't know that many of the Buddhist scriptures they practice contain the great Tao. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming, Miss Yi, how do you know so many things? Yi Jiming was expressionless, can't I guess? Guess. Yi Xian's mouth twitched. He wanted to hit someone. Yi Jiming said, with your current strength, no one in the realm of ultimate bliss can do anything to you other than those ancient monks. And those ancient monks are basically in seclusion. So, do you understand what I mean? Yi Xian said in a low voice, you want me to steal? Yi Jiming was expressionless, not steal, borrow. Yi Xian was speechless. Yi Jiming continued, not only are there Tao scriptures there is also the infinite Buddha physique that you need. If you can cultivate the infinite Buddha physique, if you cultivate the infinite Buddha body, you will have a higher chance of winning against the experts of the underworld in the future. Yi Xian frowned, with my current strength, I still can't fight against the underworld? Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian, as of now, only Mu Niannian has the strength to fight against the underworld. As for you, with your current strength, you can only say that you have the strength to fight back. But if you want to fight them, you can only dream on. Can't you see how that brat Sansheng is so afraid of the underworld? Yi Xian shook his head, she still wants to attack the underworld. Yi Jiming was expressionless. Do you know who gave her the courage? Yi Xian frowned. Don't tell me it's me. Yi Jiming sneered. It's you. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? Yi Jiming said, because of the two swords in your body. Although you can't beat them, she thinks that the owner of the two swords in your body can. Her idea is simple. She wants to drag you down with her so that you can gather people to attack the underworld. Of course, there's another reason, and that's Mu Niannian. She's also plotting against Mu Niannian. However, this wimpy brat isn't Mu Niannian's match at all. If she schemed against Mu Niannian, I'm afraid she would lose herself. Saying that, she shook her head. That brat is really a brat. His thoughts are simple, naive, and stupid. She was also very afraid of Mu Niannian. She originally had some plans, but because of Mu Niannian, she didn't dare to use them. She really didn't dare to. She was afraid that that woman would plot against her. Yi Xian. Yi Jiming said, let's go to the realm of ultimate bliss. Yi Xian said after a slight hesitation, are we really going? Yi Jiming said in a low voice, you don't have much time left. Yi Xian thought about it and said, I'm going to the Dao world. With that, he disappeared with Yi Jiming. Soon, Yi Xian arrived at the Dao world and found Jiang Yu and Li Qing. Jiang Yu looked at Yi Xian, you want to go to the realm of ultimate bliss? Yi Xian nodded, yes. I feel that we can't just sit here and wait for death. I'll go to the realm of ultimate bliss to negotiate and get them to return the study to us. Jiang Yu hesitated, I don't think they'll return it. Yi Xian pointed to himself, I can open the study and negotiate with them. Jiang Yu shook his head, young Master Yi, that's too risky. Yi Xian smiled, are we just going to sit here and wait for death? Jiang Yu fell silent. Yi Xian said, I can't go alone. I need you to cheer for me. Jiang Yu frowned slightly, you want us to go with you? Yi Xian nodded, call all the self-release realm experts. Of course, you don't have to enter the realm of ultimate bliss. I can go in alone. But we have to let the realm of ultimate bliss understand our determination and attitude. Saying that, he glanced at the two of them and continued, either we win together or we die together. Jiang Yu fell silent. Li Qing glanced at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Obviously, both of them were hesitant. Because it was too risky. Yi Xian sighed softly, both of you want the study but don't want to risk your lives. How is that possible? If this goes on, we can only passively take a beating. Jiang Yu said in a low voice, young Master Yi, I feel that you'll be sending a lamb to the tiger's mouth and dying in vain. Yi Xian smiled, since that's the case, then I choose to share the study with them. Saying that, he turned and left. Jiang Yu and Li Qing's expressions changed drastically. Chapter 1287. The shared study room. What were they most afraid of now? They were afraid that Yi Xian would side with the world of paradise. Because once that happened, it was very likely that the world of paradise would open the study room. At that time, the Dao world would be completely finished. When they saw Yi Xian leave, both of them simultaneously obstructed Yi Xian's path. Jiang Yu spoke in a low voice, young Master Yi, don't be impulsive. Yi Xian shook his head, we don't have much time left. If we continue to delay like this, what if the world of paradise finds a way to deal with the study room? At that time, we'll be in an even more passive position. Jiang Yu gazed at Li Qing, and the latter spoke in a low voice, young Master Yi, are you sure that the study room is in the hands of the world of paradise? Yi Xian nodded, I'm very sure. Li Qing remained silent for a long time before he said, then let's go. Jiang Yu gazed at Li Qing, and the latter spoke softly, it really isn't good for us to delay like this. After a short moment of silence, a trace of gloominess flashed through Jiang Yu's eyes. Let's go. In next to no time, almost 80 self-release realm experts were led by Yi Xian straight towards the world of paradise. Around 2 hours later, all of them traversed the river of stars and arrived at an unknown stellar region. Actually, Yi Xian didn't know where the world of paradise was at all. Fortunately, Li Qing knew. There were some Buddha statues in the starry sky before them. Li Qing pointed at a golden Buddha statue that was almost 3 kilometers tall. That's the entrance to the world of paradise. Yi Xian gazed at the Buddha statue. Right at this moment, the Buddha statue suddenly opened its eyes, and then 2 rays of golden light shot out explosively from its eyes. The golden light tore through the starry sky, and its target was Yi Xian and the others. Jiang Yu frowned slightly. He took a step forward and smashed his fist forward. Bang! The space in front of him shattered into nothingness, and the 2 rays of golden light were directly devoured by the shattered space. Amitabha. Meanwhile, a voice suddenly resounded. Everyone looked over and saw a monk standing not far away. The monk wore a simple robe and held a string of prayer beads in his hand. He was a little plump. The monk looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "You must be young Master Yi." Yi Xian nodded. "How should I address you, Master?" The monk smiled. Venerable Me Yi Xian smiled and said, "Master Mizun, we came here today to negotiate with the realm of ultimate bliss." Venerable Me's eyes flashed with surprise. "Negotiate?" Yi Xian nodded. "Master, your bodhisattva stole my study room. Isn't that a little immoral?" Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, our bodhisattva has fallen." Yi Xian frowned. "What do you mean?" Venerable Me clasped his hands together. "Young Master Yi should know better than us." Yi Xian shook his head. "I'm not sure. All I know is that he severely injured me and then escaped with my study room." Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, we have confirmed that he died in your hands." Hearing that, Jiang Yu frowned. "That's impossible. Although young Master Yi is strong, he isn't strong enough to kill an extreme self-release realm expert." Venerable Me chuckled. "Pavilion Master Jiang, you know too little about this young Master Yi." Jiang Yu looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. "I never expected you to bite back. Master, Pavilion Master Jiang and the others saw me being severely injured that day." Jiang Yu nodded. Yi Xian's injuries were not light at all. Li Qing glanced at Yi Xian and did not say a word. Venerable Me smiled. "Young Master Yi, you're distorting the truth. You're really powerful. You killed someone and still want to frame my realm of Western paradise. You're too sinister." Yi Xian said calmly, "Master, if you don't have evidence to prove that I killed your bodhisattva, then don't speak nonsense." Jiang Yu also looked at Venerable Me. "Master, do you have evidence?" Venerable Me shook his head. "No. Back then, Yi Xian killed very cleanly. That bodhisattva's soul was completely destroyed." Yi Xian suddenly said, "Master, I came here today to cooperate with Realm of Western Paradise. As far as I know, Realm of Western Paradise can't open the study room yet, right?" Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian. "I don't know how to answer you." Yi Xian's expression did not change. "Master, I have an idea. I think we can cooperate. I'll open the study room and everyone can share the scriptures in the study room. What do you think?" Venerable Me sighed softly. "Young Master Yi, that study room is really not in my realm of Western Paradise's hands." Yi Xian looked at Jiang Yu. "They want to keep it for themselves." Jiang Yu looked at Venerable Me in the distance. His expression was somewhat unfriendly. Venerable Me sighed again. "Young Master Yi, one of my Buddhist ancestors has already divined that the study room is still in your hands. And that bodhisattva was indeed killed by you. Although we don't know how young Master Yi killed him, we can be sure that he died in the hands of young Master Yi." Yi Xian smiled. "Master, if you put it that way, then I can only say that someone behind me has also divined it. And the result is that the study room is in your realm of Western Paradise's hands." Venerable Yi looked at Yi Xian and clasped his hands together. Young Master Yi, you're a swordsman, and a rare swordsman at that. You speak irresponsibly, distort black and white, fabricate things out of thin air. Won't your conscience be condemned? Yi Xian was speechless. Venerable Yi continued. Young Master Yi, although we're opponents, we still respect young Master Yi very much. Please, young Master Yi, respect us and stop playing these shady tricks. We can fight openly, really. Yi Xian sighed softly. Master, I don't like hearing you say that. You keep saying that I'm slandering you, but do you have any evidence? Also, you keep saying that Mahabodhisattva died in my hands, but you don't have any evidence to prove that Mahabodhisattva died in my hands. In my opinion, after you get the study room, you still want me, Yi Xian, to be the scapegoat. You're the real sinister ones. Venerable Yi looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, you're invincible. I have nothing to say to you. As he said that, he clasped his hands together and silently chanted scriptures, forcefully suppressing the anger in his heart. Don't be angry. A monk needs to calm his heart. Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm. There was a ball of Buddhist light in his hand. Spiritual insight. Venerable Yi glanced at the ball of Buddhist light in Yi Xian's hand. There was a complicated look in his eyes. This old monk has cultivated for nearly 100 years before achieving spiritual insight. How can someone like you, young Master Yi, also achieve spiritual insight? Is my Buddha's eye blind? Yi Xian's face darkened. Master, I remember there's a saying in Buddhism that all living beings are equal. Why? In Venerable Yi's heart, there's still a hierarchy? Venerable Yi looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, don't spoil my state of mind with such words. In terms of Dharma cultivation, young Master Yi is probably not my match. Of course, in terms of shamelessness, sinister, and cunning, even 10 old monks can't compare to young Master Yi. Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, Jiang Yu suddenly said. Great monk, I think young Master Yi's suggestion is very good. Since you have the study room, and young Master Yi can open it, why don't the three of us cooperate? Venerable Yi glanced at Jiang Yu. Pavilion Master Jiang, you were sold by young Master Yi, and you still have to count the money for him. Jiang Yu frowned slightly. Great monk, is there any point in trying to sow discord now? Is there any point in sowing discord? Venerable Yi sighed. Young Master Yi's methods are brilliant. This old monk admires him. At this moment, Li Qing suddenly said, Master, you said that young Master Yi killed your bodhisattva. But as far as I know, young Master Yi is only at the self-release realm. Why do you think he killed your bodhisattva? Venerable Yi looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, are you really at the self-release realm? Yi Xian nodded. I am at the false self-release realm. Moreover, I only reached it recently. At that time, I wasn't. Venerable Yi clasped his hands together. Young Master Yi has hidden his strength. Yi Xian looked at Li Qing. They don't have any evidence, but they insist that I killed their bodhisattva. Li Qing was silent. Actually, she felt that there was something fishy about this matter. However, she did not believe that Yi Xian could kill an extreme self-release realm expert at the origin returning realm-breaking realm. Under such circumstances, Yi Xian could only kill his opponent instantly and destroy the evidence. That was the only way he could deceive everyone. But how could Yi Xian do that? Venerable Yi suddenly said, Fifth Dimension Tendo. Everyone looked at Venerable Yi. Venerable Yi said solemnly, Young Master Yi might not be able to do it, but that fifth dimension Tendo is definitely able to do it. Yi Xian smiled. Master, didn't you say that I killed your bodhisattva? How did it become a fifth dimension Tendo? Venerable Yi said, I think that Miss Mu helped you. Fifth dimension Tendo. Jiang Yu and Li Qing looked at each other. Although Yi Xian did not have the ability to kill an extreme self-release realm expert, this fifth dimension Tendo could. Could the study room really be in Yi Xian's hands? Jiang Yu and Li Qing looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. Forgive me for speaking bluntly. If the study room was really in my hands, I could have asked her to help me open it and obtain the Tao scripture inside. Why wait until now? Jiang Yu was silent. Yi Xian looked at Venerable Mi. Master, can I have a word with you? Venerable Mi looked at Yi Xian. Sure. Yi Xian walked to Jiang Yu's side and said softly, Pavilion Master Jiang, I will think of a way to enter the realm of ultimate bliss. As long as I enter, I will be able to sense the study room. Jiang Yu nodded. Understood. Young Master Yi, be careful. Yi Xian nodded. He was about to leave when Jiang Yu suddenly said, Young Master Yi. Yi Xian looked at Jiang Yu. Jiang Yu said solemnly, Young Master Yi, I believe in you. Yi Xian was a little touched. Thank you. With that said, he and Venerable Mi disappeared into the distant starry sky. At the end of the starry sky, the two walked slowly. Yi Xian suddenly said, Master, to be honest, I know the study room is not in the hands of the realm of ultimate bliss, but it is not in my hands either. Venerable Mi was slightly stunned. He looked at Yi Xian. Then who has it? Yi Xian smiled. Master, who do you think has it? Venerable Mi said solemnly, Fifth Dimension Tendo. Yi Xian shook his head. Venerable Mi frowned slightly. Then who has it? Yi Xian said seriously, the underworld. Venerable Mi was stunned. Then he put his palms together. Young Master Yi, do a good deed. Don't fool me. This old monk has cultivated Dharma for nearly 1,000 years. I really can't play with these shady things. Just tell me what you want to do. With regards to your words, this old monk still retains some credibility. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. What's the best way to get votes now? Everyone can say it. I'm ready to sacrifice myself. Chapter 1288. Yi Xian was a little embarrassed. This monk didn't fall for it. Yi Xian said solemnly, Master, I can tell you who is in possession of the study. However, I have a condition. Venerable Mi glanced at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, that study is actually in your hands, right? Yi Xian shook his head, his expression calm. It's really not in my hands. I can swear to the heavens on this. Venerable Mi shook his head. Young Master Yi, I heard that you swear like farts. Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. Master, you don't believe in my character? I'm a wise man. Venerable Mi clasped his hands together. Even the Buddha can be blind sometimes. Yi Xian was a little speechless. Damn, this monk is really stubborn. Yi Xian didn't say anything else. He turned around and left. At this moment, Venerable Mi suddenly said, Young Master Yi, what do you want in exchange for handing over the study? Yi Xian looked at Venerable Mi, and Venerable Mi said again, As far as we know, you have a person from the underworld with you, right? Yi Xian smiled, You guys know quite a lot. Venerable Mi shook his head, Young Master Yi, you can't go against the underworld. Yi Xian smiled, Master Mi, I heard that the underworld has an almighty being from the realm of ultimate bliss, is that right? Venerable Mi took a deep look at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi knows a lot. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. Master, you guys are a group of outsiders, why can't you let me go? Venerable Mi clasped his hands together and said seriously, If young Master Yi is willing to hand over the study, you'll be letting yourself go. Yi Xian smiled, That's gangster logic. That's my thing. You guys want to snatch it from me, but you make it sound like it's my fault. Venerable Mi said softly, Young Master Yi, most of the time, when a person possesses something that doesn't match his strength, it's a disaster for that person. Of course, young Master Yi was very strong. However, young Master Yi occupying that study room is tantamount to making the whole world his enemy. Yi Xian looked at Venerable Mi and smiled happily. Master, everyone outside thinks that the study house is in the hands of the realm of ultimate bliss. Venerable Me smiled, they can't do anything to my realm of ultimate bliss. Yi Xian smiled and said, what if we add the 5-dimensional Tendo? Venerable Me was silent. Even the realm of ultimate bliss couldn't afford to offend that woman. Yi Xian added, Grandmaster should know about the godly kingdom of Shumi. Yes, that little girl from the netherworld is one of my companions. What if we add her into the mix? Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian and said, Young Master Yi wants to declare war on my realm of ultimate bliss? The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly, and he laughed arrogantly. You guessed right. I want to gather all the self-release experts in the 5-dimensional universe and the Tao world to declare war on the realm of ultimate bliss. We won't rest until one side is dead. After saying that, he turned and left. At this moment, Venerable Me suddenly said, Young Master Yi, that study room is clearly in your hands. Yi Xian blinked. The more I target the realm of ultimate bliss, the more people will think that the study room is in the hands of the realm of ultimate bliss. Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian and said softly, Young Master Yi, as far as I know, the 5-dimensional universe still has the 5-dimensional tribulation. Yi Xian shrugged his shoulders, attack the realm of ultimate bliss, then I will move all the beings in the 5-dimensional universe to the realm of ultimate bliss. Venerable Me frowned, Young Master Yi, are you serious? Yi Xian turned and left. Venerable Me suddenly blocked in front of Yi Xian, Young Master Yi, we can talk about the conditions you just mentioned. Actually, he wasn't afraid of Yi Xian or the Tao world, but he was afraid of Mu Niannian and Tao Sanqing. Especially Mu Niannian. Previously, Bodhisattva Wen Tian led the 18 ancient arhats and Lu Shibai to besiege Mu Niannian, but everyone died. Mu Niannian. Whether it was the realm of ultimate bliss or the godly kingdom of ultimate bliss, they were all afraid of her. Therefore, he was afraid that Yi Xian would bring Mu Niannian and Tao Sanqing to attack the realm of ultimate bliss. Once those two women went to the realm of ultimate bliss, the consequences would be unimaginable. Yi Xian looked at Venerable Me, I want to go to your realm of ultimate bliss. Venerable Me asked in a deep voice, what for? Yi Xian put his palms together and bowed slightly. Master, to tell you the truth, I yearn for the path of Buddhism very much. Therefore, I want to study Buddhism in your esteemed realm and further improve myself so that my cultivation of Buddhism can reach another level. Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian, Young Master Yi, please speak in human language. Yi Xian, Venerable Me said in a deep voice, Young Master Yi, do you know what kind of reputation you have in the myriad worlds? Without waiting for Yi Xian to answer, he continued, shameless, treacherous, shameless, extremely shameless. The world now calls you the most shameless person in history. Do you know that? Yi Xian said with a smile, no matter how shameless and shameless I am, I will never rob others. Venerable Me sighed and changed the topic, Young Master Yi, you don't really want to study the Dharma Tao, am I right? Yi Xian said in a serious tone, I really want to study the Dharma Tao. Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian, not saying a word. But it was obvious he didn't believe him. Yi Xian said with a smile, all right. I'll be honest, other than studying the Dharma Tao, I also want to study the realm of ultimate bliss invincible Buddha physique. Venerable Me frowned, invincible Buddha physique? Yi Xian nodded, yes. Venerable Me said in a deep voice, Young Master Yi, that's absolutely not for you to cultivate. That's the supreme body tempering technique of my Buddhist school. Other than my Buddhist disciples, no one else can cultivate it. Yi Xian quickly said, Master, I'm willing to join the Buddhist school. Venerable Me's mouth twitched as he shook his head with a bitter smile, Young Master Yi, please be a man. This old monk is an honest man, so don't play these fancy games with this old monk. Yi Xian said in a serious tone, Master, I'm a wise man. Am I not qualified to join the realm of ultimate bliss? Venerable Me said in a deep voice, Young Master Yi, you're not here to study the Dharma Tao, you're here to learn my Buddhist cultivation technique. If this old monk didn't guess wrongly, after you finish learning it, you might even use it to beat up my Buddhist disciples, right? Yi Xian said, actually, it was Sister Nian who asked me to come. Venerable Me frowned. 5-dimensional Tendo? Yi Xian nodded. She said that the invincible Buddha physique is very suitable for me to cultivate, so she asked me to come find you. Venerable Me glanced at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, that's my Buddhist school. Yi Xian spread his hands. That study is still mine. Didn't you come to snatch it anyway? Venerable Me was speechless. Yi Xian smiled. It's fine. Since your realm doesn't want me to cultivate it, then I'll go find Sister Nian. I'll ask her to personally come to the realm of ultimate bliss. With that, he turned around and left. Venerable Me hurriedly said, Young Master Yi, please wait. Yi Xian looked at Venerable Me. Master Me, what's the matter? Venerable Me said in a deep voice, Young Master Yi, what's your relationship with that 5-dimensional Tendo? Yi Xian opened his palm, and the Tendo sword appeared in his hand. When he saw the Tendo sword, Venerable Me was stunned, then said softly, She gave this sword to you? Yi Xian nodded. That's right. Venerable Me was silent. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, follow me. With that, he turned around and left. Yi Xian glanced at the end of the starry sky, then he followed. At this moment, Yi Jiming's voice suddenly sounded in Yi Xian's mind. Something's fishy, you have to be careful. Yi Xian nodded. When Yi Xian followed Venerable Me to the realm of ultimate bliss, he was shocked. The spiritual energy in the realm of ultimate bliss was too pure. It was at least 10 times that of the 5-dimensional universe. It was even purer than the Tao world and the godly kingdom of Shumi. Moreover, it was very dense. Cultivating in this place was twice the result with half the effort. Yi Xian looked around. There were some ancient temples and pagodas floating in the air, all of them exuding a powerful aura. The overall strength of the realm of ultimate bliss was definitely above the godly kingdom of Shumi. At this moment, Venerable Me suddenly said, Young Master Yi, aren't you afraid of us attacking you? Yi Xian smiled. Master, what level is Bodhisattva when Tian's strength in the realm of ultimate bliss? Venerable Me was silent. Although when Tian was only a Bodhisattva, he was the head of all Bodhisattvas. His strength was even higher than some Bodhisattvas. Yi Xian's words were a threat. Venerable Me suddenly said, Young Master Yi, Miss Mu is not invincible. Yi Xian looked at Venerable Me. Master, if I'm not wrong, what you need now is time, right? Venerable Me did not speak. Yi Xian continued, You and the godly kingdom of Shumi wanted to kill Sister Nian, but you failed. Sister Nian's strength far exceeds your expectations. Next, you don't dare to act rashly. Or rather, you are waiting for the 5th dimension tribulation to arrive. At that time, if Sister Nian wants to help the 5-dimensional universe, it will be your best opportunity. You want to act at that time. Or perhaps, you want to seek help from the underworld. After all, I have a little girl who came from the underworld by my side, and she has a grudge with the underworld. You want to contact the underworld and use it to deal with me and Sister Nian, right? Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian, his expression calm, but his heart was shaken. Yi Xian smiled. Master, it seems I guessed correctly. Right? Venerable Me clasped his hands together. Young Master Yi, do you know that by causing trouble like this, not only will you harm yourself, you will also harm Miss Mu? Because as far as we know, her current body is not very good. Yi Xian looked at Venerable Me. Master, if I behave myself, will you let me go? Venerable Me frowned. Then Young Master Yi, why don't you give up on the study? Yi Xian smiled. Master, I have my eyes on the realm of ultimate bliss. May I ask, can you give it to me? Venerable Me was silent. Yi Xian continued, I don't care about the study, and I don't care about the Tao scriptures inside. But I know that even if I give you the Tao scriptures, you won't let me go. Because you will feel that I am a threat. Only by cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots can you truly be at ease, right? Venerable Me was silent. Yi Xian continued, Moreover, since you have your eyes on the study of me, Yi Xian, today, Yi Xian, will have to give it to you. But what if you have your eyes on my, Yi Xian's, woman in the future? Will I also have to give it to you? Saying this, Yi Xian smiled. Enduring for a while won't calm down. Taking a step back will only make the enemy want more. Chapter 1289. Retreat? Yi Xian was clear that he had no way out. Even if he handed over the study, these people would still not let him go. To him, what he needed to do now was to frantically increase his and the fifth dimension's strength. Strength was the way of the king. Without strength, everything else was just fleeting clouds. The prophet's words left a deep impression on him. How could the plainly dressed woman sever her own karma? Because she was strong enough, no karma would dare to taint her. When one's strength reached a certain level, even if it was a disaster, it would only bear good karma. Venerable Me did not say anything else. He knew that the realm of ultimate bliss and Yi Xian could not be resolved peacefully. But now, the realm of ultimate bliss needed some time. Because the biggest threat to them was not Yi Xian, but Mu Niannian and Dao Sanqing. When they could not deal with those two women, they did not dare to attack Yi Xian because they could not withstand their revenge. And Yi Xian dared to come to the realm of ultimate bliss because he saw this point. Not long later, Venerable Me brought Yi Xian to a Buddhist temple where some monks were chanting. Yi Xian's gaze swept across them. They were all powerful monks. Venerable Me looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, didn't you say that you like Buddhism? There are 360,000 scriptures here, all Mahayana scriptures. You can read them as you wish. Yi Xian said solemnly, Master, what about indestructible Buddha body? Venerable Me smiled. Young Master Yi, do you know what is needed to cultivate that indestructible Buddha body? It requires a very high level of Buddhism cultivation. Yi Xian was silent. Yi Jiming suddenly said, he did not lie to you. But he wants to use these scriptures to stall you. Yi Xian nodded and thought to himself, I know. Yi Jiming said again, don't worry, our real goal is these scriptures. Yi Xian looked at Venerable Me. Master, I'll study these scriptures first. Venerable Me clasped his hands together. Young Master Yi, take your time to learn. After saying that, he left. At this moment, Yi Jiming's voice sounded in Yi Xian's mind, Kid, don't underestimate these scriptures. They are all treasures, because they contain the wisdom of our predecessors. If you can really comprehend them, the benefits they will bring you will be unimaginable. Yi Xian said solemnly, too many. Yi Jiming said, just watch, I'll help you. Yi Xian nodded his head. He walked in front of a bookshelf and took out the first volume of Buddhist scriptures. With his current strength, he naturally had a photographic memory. He glanced at it, but he didn't really understand a lot of it. Fortunately, there was Yi Jiming. Yi Jiming would explain some of the core points and important parts of the scripture to him in detail. He had to admit that these Buddhist scriptures were indeed very useful. Even he felt that some of the Buddhist theories made sense. Of course, he was even more shocked by Yi Jiming. This woman was a freak. She could see through any Buddhist scripture with a single glance, and could even infer many things from one instance to refute some of the scriptures. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly realized that he must never underestimate any woman. From the city of Azure until now, the women he met were each more terrifying than the last. After Venerable Me left the temple, he came to a place where a monk sat in the clouds. The monk's back was facing Venerable Me, seemingly real yet illusory. Illusory. Venerable Me clasped his hands together and bowed, Namo Buddhist Ancestor. The person before him was Namo Buddhist Ancestor of the realm of ultimate bliss, the current leader of the realm of ultimate bliss. Namo said softly, that Miss Mu has already proven her Tao, a true Tao. Venerable Me clasped his hands together. Even though he was mentally prepared, he was still shocked. A true Tao realm. The realm of ultimate bliss had it in the past, but not in the current realm of ultimate bliss. Even though this Namo Buddhist ancestor was also in the Tao realm, it was a false Tao realm. There was a huge gap between him and Mu Niannian's Tao realm. Namo continued, I want to make a trip to the netherworld. Venerable Me looked at Namo. Namo clasped his hands together. During this period, do not make a move against that young Master Yi. With that, his body turned illusory, disappearing with the wind like a wisp of smoke. Godly Kingdom of Shumi. In the depths of a certain mountain, dozens of people stood in front of a cave, waiting quietly. These were the experts of the godly kingdom of Shumi's royal family. After an unknown period of time, the stone door of the cave suddenly cracked open, and a middle-aged man walked out. Seeing the middle-aged man, the expert's blood boiled. Ancestor of the godly kingdom of Shumi, Nan Chu. Nan Chu looked at his own body and said softly, this possession technique has too many drawbacks. In theory, he couldn't live that long, but he still forcefully used this possession technique to keep his soul alive. However, possession was not tolerated by the Great Tao. His current strength was not even half of his peak. Of course, to this world, he was still a top-notch expert. However, he had to face a problem, and that was to cultivate his own physical body. Otherwise, when his current physical body was destroyed, his soul would be erased by this world. The stronger the person, the more difficult it was to possess. The Great Tao did not tolerate it. How chaotic would the world be if experts from ancient times began to possess when they reached the end of their cultivation, and then began to cultivate again? In fact, a long, long time ago, possession was impossible. Once it was done, the reincarnation laws of this world would immediately erase it. Unfortunately, the Great Tao collapsed, and there was no order. Therefore, countless demons and ghosts appeared. However, this kind of possession had great drawbacks. Because this physical body was not his own, there was a serious problem of compatibility between his soul and this physical body. Now, it was impossible for him to cultivate a physical body with his soul. This was because his soul was not complete. Strictly speaking, he was no longer the Nan Chu of the past. Nan Chu looked up at the horizon and said softly, I want to go to the netherworld. His current problem was very big. If he wanted to change this state, there was only one way, and that was to read the Tao scriptures. Moreover, he understood how terrifying Mu Niannian and Tao Sanqing were, and it was impossible for him to go against them on his own. So, he had to seek help. Nan Chu glanced at the experts of the godly kingdom of Shumi. Before I return, don't provoke the fifth dimension in Yi Xian. After saying that, he disappeared from sight. Somewhere in the void, Nan Chu met Namo Buddha from the Western Paradise. It was obvious that their meeting was not a coincidence. The two walked side by side into the distance. Nan Chu smiled. Grandmaster, tell me, how did Miss Mu reach the true what about the orthodox Tao-proving realm? Nan Chu was silent. In fact, this was something he had always been puzzled about. How did that woman reach the Tao validation realm? Nan Chu suddenly said, Grandmaster, do you think she has read the Tao scriptures? Tao scriptures. Nan Chu said solemnly, it's not impossible. When the prophet went to the fifth dimension, he might have shown her the Tao scriptures. Nan Chu narrowed his eyes. That means that Yi Xian might have also read the Tao scriptures? Nan Chu clasped his hands together. That depends on whether Miss Mu is willing to show him. Nan Chu smiled. Grandmaster, do you think Miss Mu or Yi Xian is scarier? Nan Chu looked at Nan Chu. What are you trying to say? Nan Chu said softly, Yi Xian has a calamity cause. But he survived until now. Moreover, from what I know, there seems to be a woman in a plain dress behind him. As for this woman, I have sent people to investigate her. After she disappeared from the Tao realm, I don't know where she went. I'm afraid this person is a variable. Woman in a plain dress. Nan Chu was silent. In fact, the woman's strength was also a mystery to them. They only knew that this woman only used one sword to kill. As for how strong she was, no one knew. Yi Xian and Mu Niannian might know, but would they say it? Nan Chu continued, Grandmaster, what I want to say is that our opponent this time is not ordinary. Let's not talk about that, Mu Niannian. Just this Yi Xian is not someone we can lower our guard. Let's not talk about this person's strength. The people behind him are the truly terrifying ones, especially that woman in a plain dress. We cannot underestimate her. Moreover, I feel that she might be hiding in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to give us a fatal blow. Nan Chu frowned. She's hiding in the dark? Nan Chu nodded. Since this person claims to be Yi Xian's Dao protector, why hasn't she appeared yet? There is only one possibility, and that is that she is protecting him in the dark. If Yi Xian is in danger, then she will definitely make an appearance. However, we know very little about her. So, if we misjudge her strength, then we'll probably suffer heavy losses. As he spoke, he gazed at Nan Chu and said, Grandmaster, according to my knowledge, you're very skilled in the Tao of divination. Why don't you perform a divination on this woman and investigate her ability? Nan Chu remained silent for a moment before he suddenly opened his right hand, and then 2 copper coins appeared there. He flipped them lightly, and they fell to the ground. Nan Chu gazed at them, and it didn't take long for the space around him to tremble. Suddenly, the 2 copper coins vanished without a trace. Nan Chu frowned. Nan Chu spoke in a low voice, What is it? Nan Chu glanced at the surroundings and said, I can't deduce anything. Nan Chu asked, Why? Nan Chu spoke softly, There are 2 explanations. Firstly, she used something to avoid the workings of the heavens. Secondly, she has attained the Tao validation realm, and she has fused with the Grand Tao. Nan Chu spoke in a low voice, Looks like she has attained the Tao validation realm. Nan Chu nodded, Probably. 2 experts at the Tao validation realm. Nan Chu remained silent for a long time. Looks like we have to think of a way to deal with her. As he spoke, he looked up towards the horizon and spoke softly, We're definitely unable to resist them with our current strength, so we have to rely on the strength of the nether dimension to deal with them. Especially that woman. She's Yi Xian's Dao protector, and she's hiding in the shadows. We have to think of a way to get the experts of the nether dimension to eliminate her first. The nether dimension was speechless. Chapter 1290. Nan Chu and Nan Wu sped up. Soon, they disappeared into the horizon. In the 5-dimensional universe. Somewhere in the starry sky, Mu Niannian was grilling fish. Not far from her was Dao Sanqing. Dao Sanqing looked at the grilled fish and said, What do you think of my plan to attack the underworld? In her plan to attack the underworld, this woman was indispensable. In her opinion, only this woman could match the master of the underworld. Mu Niannian looked at Dao Sanqing and smiled. Why attack the underworld? Dao Sanqing was expressionless. I don't like them. Mu Niannian smiled. Back then, you were imprisoned in the underworld, right? Dao Sanqing was silent. Mu Niannian said softly, Girl, you are very special. It was not easy for you to have today's fortune. Therefore, I have to advise you to be cautious. Dao Sanqing looked at Mu Niannian and frowned. You don't want to attack the underworld with us? Mu Niannian smiled. Let me tell you, there is only one way to destroy the underworld. Dao Sanqing asked hurriedly, What is it? Mu Niannian smiled. The owner of the pagoda sword can do it. Dao Sanqing said in a low voice. I know. I told little Xuanzi to call the owner of the pagoda sword when we attack the underworld. Then, she looked at Mu Niannian. With you, we can definitely destroy the underworld. Mu Niannian shook her head and smiled. I am very busy. Dao Sanqing still wanted to say something, but Mu Niannian suddenly said, I feel that this matter cannot be rushed. You see, there are so many troublesome matters in the 5th dimension, and there are so many enemies. If we attack the underworld now, won't we be surrounded by enemies? Dao Sanqing nodded. I know. Mu Niannian continued. Therefore, we have to solve the problem in front of us before we can think about the future. What do you think? Dao Sanqing fell silent. Mu Niannian continued, what you need to do now is to help him solve the problem at hand. Dao Sanqing suddenly said, I have a friend in the netherworld, I want to save her. Mu Niannian looked at Dao Sanqing and said, follow him well. He will help you save your friends in the future. Dao Sanqing nodded. I know. The owner of the sword in the pagoda is very powerful. He might even be more powerful than my former master. She paused and looked at Mu Niannian. You're strong too. Very strong. Mu Niannian laughed and said nothing. Dao Sanqing stood up to leave, but she suddenly stopped and turned to look at Mu Niannian. You're going to die. Right? Mu Niannian blinked. How is that possible? Dao Sanqing frowned. Did I sense it wrong? Mu Niannian smiled and said, yes, you must have felt it wrong. Dao Sanqing sighed and turned to leave. In the starry sky, Mu Niannian opened her right hand and there was another shallow cut on her palm. 3 cuts. Mu Niannian shook her head and smiled. At this time, Ling suddenly said, let's go. Forget about the 5-dimensional universe. Forget about that scoundrel Yi. Mu Niannian glanced at the starry sky around him and chuckled, ever since I was born, this world has nurtured me. Ling, everyone has a dream, and I also have one. My dream is to take good care of this universe, take care of the stars, the sun, and the moon. If even I had to give up on them, how much despair would they feel? Ling suddenly said, what if scoundrel Yi doesn't treat this universe well? Have you thought about it? Mu Niannian smiled. Then I won't let him go even if I become a ghost. In the realm of ultimate bliss. After Venerable Mi brought Yi Xian to the temple, he did not care about Yi Xian anymore. In any case, there were only some Buddhist scriptures in the temple, so it did not matter if Yi Xian stole them. During this period of time, Yi Xian had been concentrating on studying those Buddhist scriptures every day. He had to admit that this was a great help to him. Although his strength did not increase, his Buddhist cultivation was increasing. After all, he had reached the level of spiritual insight. However, he did not find any Tao scriptures among the Buddhist scriptures. Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. At this moment, he was the only one left in the temple. Yi Xian put down the Buddhist scripture in his hand and said, Miss Yi, this Buddhist scripture says that all beings are equal. What do you think? Yi Jiming was silent for a moment and said, it's not realistic. Yi Xian nodded. I also think it's not realistic. Yi Jiming said, do you still think it's funny? Yi Xian smiled sheepishly. A little. Yi Jiming said, it's not realistic, but it's not funny at all. This is a concept of Buddhism. The eminent monk who said this is benevolent and respectable, but this is simply impossible. Yi Xian was silent. Yi Jiming said, this Buddhist doctrine is not something an ordinary person can cultivate. If an ordinary person cultivates this Buddhist doctrine, they will easily become a demon. Yi Xian shook his head. I think that Buddha is a demon, and the demon is Buddha. Yi Jiming asked, what do you mean? Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Buddha and demon are often separated by a single thought. Yi Jiming was silent. Yi Xian raised his head to look at the golden Buddha statue and smiled. Just like now, which Buddha would rob others? Actually, I'm very curious. Why don't they feel ashamed for doing such a thing? Isn't this behavior going against the Buddhist doctrine they cultivate? Yi Jiming said, so, there are no true experts in the Western paradise now. Yi Xian was curious. So, there used to be? Yi Jiming said, yes. And there were many of them. There were many talents in the Western paradise at that time, and they were all high monks. However, the change that time had a great impact on the Western paradise. As for these monks now, if I'm not wrong, they want to reach a higher level. Also, you have to understand that they first cultivate Taoism, then they cultivate Buddhism. In other words, Their ultimate goal of cultivating Buddhism is longevity and the Great Tao. Hearing this, Yi Xian understood. Isn't cultivating Buddhism the same as cultivating longevity? Yi Jiming continued, keep reading. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and said, Miss Yi, I think you're very knowledgeable. Nian Nian said that she reached release 1 because of reading. Do you think she's telling the truth? Yi Jiming said, yes. Yi Xian said in a low voice, why? Yi Jiming said, if you don't understand this world, how can you understand the Tao? If you don't understand the Tao, how can you achieve it? She's someone who truly understands the Great Tao. As for you, even though you've reached release 1, there's still a huge gap between you and her. What I mean is that your release 1 isn't the same as hers. Yi Xian frowned. Why? Yi Jiming said in a low voice, she walked step by step. As for you, you've cheated to get here. There's a difference. So, I suggest that you focus on studying the Tao, stabilize your cultivation, and make your release 1 even more valuable. Yi Xian fell silent. Release 1. Actually, he knew that Yi Jiming was telling the truth. Because up until now, he still didn't have a clear understanding of the so-called Great Tao. Simply put, his release 1 was slightly exaggerated. Of course, it was much better than a fake release 1. Yi Jiming continued, let's continue reading. Yi Xian nodded, picking up a scroll in front of him. During this period, Yi Xian would discuss with Yi Jiming from time to time, even quarreling, but in the end, Yi Xian would lose. Discussing Buddhism, discussing Tao. After interacting with this Yi Jiming for a while, he started to admire this little girl. This little lass was really erudite and multi-talented. She was practically omniscient. Actually, he was curious whether this little girl or Mu Niannian was more knowledgeable. Outside the hall, Venerable Mi stood quietly. He didn't enter, but he knew that Yi Xian had been reading those Buddhist scriptures every day. This made him very confused. Could that slippery fellow really be interested in Buddhist scriptures? That shouldn't be the case. This fellow definitely didn't come here to read Buddhist scriptures. Actually, his intuition told him that it was best to chase Yi Xian away now. But he also knew that he couldn't chase him away. That fellow was relying on Mu Niannian and Dao Sanqing to be lawless. Wait. Venerable Mi sighed, turned and left. Outside the realm of bliss, Jiang Yu and the rest were also waiting. Beside Jiang Yu, Li Qing suddenly said, do you really believe that he went in for the Tao scriptures? Jiang Yu looked at the end of the sky, whispering, Miss Li Qing, do you think you're very smart? Li Qing looked at Jiang Yu, frowning, what do you mean? Jiang Yu chuckled, Miss Li Qing, how is your Tao village compared to the 5th dimension? Li Qing was silent. In the past, the Tao village definitely crushed the 5th dimension. But now, the 5th dimension's Tendo alone could crush the Tao village. Jiang Yu asked again, then how is your Tao village compared to the realm of bliss and Shumi kingdom? Li Qing frowned. The Tao village naturally couldn't compare to the realm of bliss and Shumi kingdom. Jiang Yu looked at Li Qing, since it can't compare to the 5th dimension and can't compare to the realm of bliss and Shumi kingdom, then let me ask Miss Li, what qualifications do you have to compete with them for the Tao scriptures? Li Qing looked at Jiang Yu, what do you mean? Jiang Yu smiled, nothing. I just want Miss Li Qing to understand one thing, this is a battle between the realm of bliss and Shumi kingdom, and we don't have the qualifications to compete for the Tao scriptures. We only have 2 paths now, the first is to not compete, completely give up on the Tao scriptures, and then hide, not caring about anything. The second is to choose a side, choose a side. Since the death of the Pope, he actually understood a lot of things. The Tao world didn't have the qualifications to compete for the Tao scriptures. Li Qing was silent. Jiang Yu said softly, not competing, not resigned. So, I choose a side. Although young Master Yi is cunning and sinister, he treats his people well, so I choose him. Li Qing looked at Jiang Yu deeply, why didn't you choose the realm of bliss and Shumi kingdom? Jiang Yu smiled, because young Master Yi and that Miss Mu are sinister and cunning enough. Of course, there is another reason, and that is our young Master Yi seems to have a lot of backers. If we follow him, won't his backer be our backer? Li Qing. Chapter 1291. It had to be said that Li Qing was shocked. She did not expect Jiang Yu to be playing dumb. This pavilion master Jiang had seen through everything. Indeed, neither the Dao village nor the immortal pavilion had the qualifications to fight for the Dao scripture. Because neither the fifth dimension or the realm of Western Paradise was something the Dao world could contend against. As Jiang Yu said, they were unwilling to fight, but if they wanted to fight, they only had one choice, and that was to choose a side. And Jiang Yu chose to side with Yi Xian. Jiang Yu suddenly said, "Miss Li, we will not force you to follow young Master Yi like us. Make your own choice." Li Qing was silent. Jiang Yu said, "Miss Li, if the Dao village wants to fight for the Dao scripture, we will not stop them." Li Qing looked up at the horizon and said softly, "Before, we were opponents, now we are teammates." Then, she shook her head and smiled, "How interesting." Jiang Yu was silent. When the enemy was too powerful, what was the best way to deal with them? Rely on them and join them. At least for the Dao world, this was their only choice unless they were willing to give up on the Dao scripture. But they did not want to give up. The reason they did not do so before was because they felt that the Dao world had the strength to do so. But now, they clearly realized that they did not have the strength to do so. In fact, he was also unwilling, but he had no other choice. Li Qing was silent for a long time, then turned and left. She could not make the decision herself. What to do depended on the Dao village. But she already knew what the Dao village would do. The Dao village would wait. They would wait. Because she was not sure if Yi Xian could fight against the realm of Western Paradise. Choosing a side now was too risky. In the fifth dimension. On this day, a sword chime suddenly resounded in the Great Desolation Kingdom. Then, a woman appeared in the Great Desolation Kingdom's sky. It was Arrow, who had been in seclusion for many days. And right now, Ah Luo had already reached self-release. A true release one. Arrow waved her sleeves, and the powerful force around her disappeared without a trace. The reason she could reach release one was naturally because of the Dao scripture that Yi Jiming and Yi Xian had given her. Almost at the same time, a sword cry resounded from the other side, followed by a deafening tearing sound. Ah Jiao and Situ. Obviously, the two of them had also come out of seclusion. In the starry sky, Situ walked in front of Ah Jiao. Ah Jiao was drinking and drinking very boldly. Situ looked at Ah Jiao. "Are we leaving?" Ah Jiao suddenly drew her sword and pointed it at Situ. "Do you have a conscience?" Situ was silent. Ah Jiao was expressionless. "How did you reach this realm?" "Because of his selflessness. Right now, this cosmos is facing the calamity of the fifth dimension and the calamity caused by humans. If you leave at this time, has your conscience been eaten by your blade?" With that, Ah Jiao turned and left. Situ Yen suddenly said angrily, "Ah Jiao, you stupid woman. Do you know that you might die if you stay here?" Ah Jiao stopped in her tracks and turned to look at Situ. Previously, he owed us. Now, we owe him. Without him, you want to reach true self-release? Give you another 100 years? With that, she turned around and disappeared into the horizon. Situ Yen was silent. Her talent was naturally not bad. However, without Yi Xian's generosity and Yi Jiming's guidance, if she wanted to reach true self-release, even 100 years wouldn't be enough. As Ah Jiao said, they now owed Yi Xian. In a certain courtyard, the door of a room suddenly opened and a woman walked out. Qingcheng, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent and no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as the heir is removed and Yi Lang will succeed him. The one who spoke was an old man wearing a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the elders of the Yi clan. Why? At this moment, a timid voice suddenly rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling. She was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to everyone in the ancestral hall and said timidly, Grand Elder, my brother Yi Xian is the heir. Why did you cripple him for no reason? The Grand Elder looked coldly at Yi Ling. This is a matter of the clan. What are you interrupting for? Leave. Yi Ling was clearly a little fearful. She did not dare to look the Great Elder in the eye, but she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides of the hall and said, Elders, my brother is currently fighting with the Li family for the mining rights of the mine in Nanshan. He is now fighting for the family, and it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. However, the family has used a groundless excuse to remove his position as the crown prince. Impudent. The Grand Elder suddenly raged. It's not up to a little girl like you to decide whether to strip him of his position or not. Men, drag her away. At this time, the new heir, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed. You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The Grand Elder replied coldly, then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now, he is fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new heir, Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, Young Master Yi Lang inherits the title of heir. What are you yelling about? As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded. Yi Ling's right cheek instantly turned red and swollen. However, she did not cry. She only covered her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled, What's your name? The guard quickly bowed, Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the crown prince. Yi Lang nodded, You're not bad. After I become the crown prince, I need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on. Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed. He quickly bowed deeply, Subordinate will go through fire and water for the crown prince. Yi Lang nodded, Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't hold back. Understood. Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu suddenly stopped as if he had seen something. Inside the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside the hall. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe. The robe was tattered and covered in blood. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's mouth curled into a cold smile. In the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The Great Elder narrowed his eyes. His face was dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this moment, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Zhang Mu felt dizzy, and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there. He charged at Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man." "How dare you?" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. "Pooh!" Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stomped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, "Prince, save me." Yi Xian ignored Zhang Mu. Walking up to Yi Ling, seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced apart. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Peng! Qingcheng, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides, there were the Yi clan elders. "Why?" Right at this moment, a slightly timid voice suddenly resounded within the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she had rushed over despite her illness. The old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The girl called Yi Ling bowed to everyone in the hall, speaking timidly, "Great elder, my brother, Yi Xian, is the prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason?" The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. "This is a matter of the clan, why are you butting in? Leave." Yi Ling was clearly a little fearful. She did not dare to look the great elder in the eye, but she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides of the hall and said, "Elders, my brother is currently fighting with the Li family for the mining rights of the mine in Nanshan. He is now fighting for the family, and it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. However, the family has used a groundless excuse to remove his position as the crown prince." Impudent! The great elder suddenly raged. "Whether he's stripped or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this time, the new prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed. "He should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The great elder replied coldly, "Then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, 2 Yi clan guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists, and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now, he's fighting for the clan. This is unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new prince, Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the title of prince. What are you shouting for?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap! A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly turned red and swollen. However, she did not cry, and only covered her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard, and smiled. "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the prince." Yi Lang nodded. "You're not bad. After I become the prince, I'll need 10 guards. From now on, you'll be my guard." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed, and hurriedly bowed deeply. "I'll go through fire and water for the prince, and I'll do anything for you." Yi Lang nodded. "Drag him away. This person is causing trouble in the ancestral hall. Don't hold back, understand?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu seemed to have seen something, and suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe, and the robe was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's mouth curled into a cold smile. In the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, and his face was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang, and just as he was about to speak, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there, and he charged towards Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly, while Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, your man? As he spoke, he stomped down on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, Prince, save me. Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, tears welled up in her eyes. Brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu, and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Pung! Chapter 1292. In fact, Venerable Mi really did not expect Yi Xian to quietly read Buddhist scriptures for so many days. During this period, he would come every day, and Yi Xian was indeed reading Buddhist scriptures. Other than that, he did nothing else. He could not help but doubt himself. Was this guy really here to learn Buddhism? That should not be the case. At this moment, Yi Xian chuckled, Master, are you giving it to me or not? Venerable Mi collected his thoughts. He looked at Yi Xian with a gloomy face. Young Master Yi, what are you trying to do? Yi Xian put away his smile and put his palms together. Master, I just want to learn Buddhism, really. Venerable Mi looked at Yi Xian without saying a word. Yi Xian said seriously, if Master doesn't believe me, I can swear on the name of Buddha. If what I say is false, Buddha, Venerable Mi suddenly interrupted Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, this old monk does not understand. Why do you swear on the name of Buddha? Why don't you swear on yourself? Yi Xian spread his palms. Master, look, I have achieved spiritual insight. I am also a disciple of Buddhism. Venerable Mi's mouth twitched. Young Master Yi is not a disciple of Buddhism. Yi Xian looked at Venerable Mi. Master, Buddha once said, with Buddha in your heart, everyone is Buddha. I, Yi Xian, have cultivated Buddhism by chance and achieved spiritual insight. Master, on what basis do you say I am not a disciple of Buddhism? Of course, I am a disciple of Buddha, not a disciple of the realm of ultimate bliss. But strictly speaking, we all believe in Buddha. What you believe in, I believe in. We cannot interfere with each other. Venerable Mi looked at Yi Xian and put his palms together. Young Master Yi, your shamelessness has refreshed my understanding of shamelessness. Yi Xian, Venerable Mi said in a deep voice. Young Master Yi, to let you learn Buddhism here is already. Yi Xian suddenly punched in front of him. Boom! The ground in front of Yi Xian collapsed. Venerable Mi's voice stopped abruptly. At this time, countless Buddhist powerhouses rushed over. Yi Xian suddenly took out the Tendo sword. Seeing the Tendo sword, Venerable Mi's eyelids twitched and he hurriedly said, Young Master Yi. Yi Xian said calmly, Venerable Mi, let me tell you, when my sister Nian comes, it won't be as simple as asking for Buddhist scriptures. Venerable Mi glared at Yi Xian. What are you trying to do? Yi Xian sheathed his Tendo sword and clasped his palms together. I am very thirsty for Buddha's help. Please, great master. Venerable Mi said angrily, Young Master Yi, do you think we're stupid? What are you going to do? Yi Xian was expressionless. He took out the Tendo sword again. Soon, the sword began to vibrate. Seeing this, Venerable Mi's expression changed. He hurriedly said, Young Master Yi, we can negotiate. We can negotiate. Yi Xian said calmly, Great Master, I want all the Buddhist scriptures. Venerable Mi was silent. Yi Xian suddenly raged, Give it to me. Or I'll call for help. The monks, Venerable Mi looked deeply at Yi Xian. Damn, this guy is playing the gangster. At this time, a voice suddenly rang out in Venerable Mi's mind. Give it to him. Venerable Mi took a deep breath and turned to leave. Give it to Yi Xian. Before Namo Buddhist Lord returned, they couldn't lure Mu Niannian over. The monks around him were all looking at Yi Xian. Their gazes were a little unfriendly, but some of them were curious. Yi Xian looked at the monks around him and clasped his palms together. Greetings, great masters. Who has the indestructible body? I would like to borrow it. All the monks, Yi Xian still wanted to ask something, but the monks suddenly turned around and disappeared. Yi Xian blinked and said, Am I that terrifying? At this moment, Yi Jiming appeared beside Yi Xian. There's only one explanation for their tolerance. Do you understand? Yi Xian nodded, and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. They should be contacting the underworld. Yi Jiming said in a low voice, What if the experts of the underworld come? Yi Xian laughed and said, We have to see him. What kind of attitude was that? If you want to kill me, I will definitely kill my way back. Speaking of which, the underworld shouldn't have any thoughts about this scripture, right? Yi Jiming said, Wrong. I can tell you that 2 of the 9 Tao scriptures are in the underworld. The status of the Tao scriptures in the underworld is not lower than that of the Tao stone. And now, not only do I have the Tao stone, I also have the Tao scriptures. Unless you're willing to hand it over. Yi Xian was silent. Yi Jiming continued, Be it the Tao stone or the Tao scriptures, they are the supreme treasures of this world. And now, both of them are in my hands. Yi Xian suddenly said, Miss Yi, with my current strength, what is my rank in the underworld? Yi Jiming said, The top. Yi Xian asked, What about above the top? Yi Jiming said, Only true Tao validation experts can pose a threat to me. And there are such experts in the underworld, and there are quite a few of them. Yi Xian suddenly laughed. Yi Jiming asked, What are you laughing at? Yi Xian said softly, Miss Yi, the underworld is actually not the strongest force in this universe, right? Yi Jiming said, Indeed not. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Whirling world? Milky Way realm? Yi Jiming shook his head. There's another place. That place is the most dangerous, but I can't tell you. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? Yi Jiming said, That place is very special. It's unspeakable and unreadable. If I tell you, I will suffer a backlash. Yi Xian frowned. It's that terrifying? Yi Jiming nodded. Other than that special place, we also have to be careful of the whirling world because the Tao scripture might have originated from there. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Might? Is it true or not? Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. Yes. Yi Xian stared at Yi Jiming. Are you sure? Yi Jiming nodded. Yes. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Miss Yi, what's your goal? After a moment of silence, Yi Jiming said, Find all the pages of the Tao scripture and complete it. Yi Xian asked, And then? Yi Jiming was about to speak when Venerated Mi suddenly appeared in front of them. Venerated Mi looked at Yi Jiming. Miss, you are? Yi Xian said, my younger sister. Younger sister. Venerated Me frowned. Isn't your younger sister Yiling? At this moment, a sword intent enveloped Venerated Me. Yi Xian stared at Venerated Me. What happened between us has nothing to do with my younger sister. Don't go looking for her, or I'll fight you to the death. Venerated Me looked at Yi Xian. With a wave of his right hand, a large pile of Buddhist scriptures appeared in front of Yi Xian before he turned and left. Yi Xian suddenly said, don't go looking for my younger sister, or I'll fight you to the death. Venerated Me didn't reply and disappeared into the distance. Yi Jiming suddenly asked, do you really want him to go looking for your younger sister? Yi Xian shook his head. No, no. I don't want them to go looking for my younger sister, really. With that, he kept the Buddhist scriptures and walked towards the Buddhist hall. Yi Jiming hurriedly followed. Is your younger sister special? Yi Xian shook his head. Not special, just an ordinary girl. Yi Jiming glanced at Yi Xian. That's impossible. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Miss Yi, I'll tell you the truth. Even Sister Nian might not be able to defeat my younger sister. How strong is the soul in Yiling's body? He didn't know. All he knew was that the woman with the spear respected the mysterious woman. Even now, he didn't have the confidence to defeat the mysterious woman. To put it simply, the mysterious woman's strength was no weaker than Mu Niannian's. Yi Jiming suddenly asked, can we talk about the people behind you? Yi Xian shook his head. I can't because I don't know many of them. Yi Jiming asked, how are they related to the green-robed man? Yi Xian thought for a moment. I'm also from the Sword Sect, and he's the founder of the Sword Sect. Yi Jiming frowned. That's it? Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. What do you mean? Yi Jiming said in a deep voice, I feel like the two of you are similar. Yi Xian blinked. Don't tell me he's my father. Yi Jiming said softly, is it impossible? Yi Xian laughed. Big sis, do you think I haven't thought about this? But do you know? He's someone from many, many years ago. Moreover, he had already left this universe a long, long time ago. Tell me, how can I be his son? Yi Jiming fell silent. Yi Xian said again, I've met him twice. Do you know what my impression of him is? Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said, he's very easygoing. Anyway, he's the kind of person who has a good temper and is approachable. One look and you can tell that he's an honest man. It's impossible for someone like him to have the demonic bloodline of mine. Yi Jiming frowned. He doesn't have such a bloodline. Yi Xian shrugged. In any case, I don't feel it. Yi Jiming fell silent. Yi Xian said again, looking at my bloodline, it goes without saying that my ancestor or that cheap father of mine isn't a good person. As for that green-robed man, I think he has a good temper. Yi Jiming said in a deep voice, there are two swords at the top of the pagoda. One of them belongs to the green-robed man. What about the other one? Yi Xian said, it belongs to the banished Immortal Island's founder. I've seen that swordsman once and he even helped me. Yi Jiming glanced at Yi Xian. That means the green-robed man, the plain-robed woman, and the banished Immortal Island's founder are related to him, right? Yi Xian nodded. You can say that. Yi Jiming suddenly said, and this Mu Niannian. I suddenly realized that he's a second-generation heir. Yi Xian was speechless. Yi Jiming said again, if you don't think the green-robed man is your father, then who do you think is? Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, I don't know, but I know that my father has the demonic madness bloodline, so he's definitely not a good person. It's obvious that he's not a normal person. He's probably a heinous devil. Even if he's not a devil, he's definitely a lunatic. He looked at Yi Jiming. That's why I feel that if my cheap father is still here, we might have to fight one-on-one in the future. Because I don't have a good temper. I don't know if I can beat him, but it doesn't matter. If I can't beat him, I'll call for help. Yi Jiming glanced at Yi Xian. Call for who? That green-robed man? Yi Xian chuckled. It's not impossible, Miss Yi. Let me tell you, I'm very familiar with him. It won't be a problem to ask him to help me fight someone, really. Yi Jiming frowned. His bloodline isn't simple, and my father is definitely not a simple person. Can that green-robed man beat him? Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, he should be able to. P.S. Do you believe in fate? I do. In 2015, I started writing online novels and got to know many readers. It was online novels that changed my fate. But I believe that fate is not predetermined, and hard work can change everything. When I was writing Sword Domain, I didn't have any readers, and I only had a dozen or so subscriptions. I worked alone every day, and my monthly royalties were more than 300. Only a reader called Soul Eater told me that as long as I persisted in writing, he would give me 50 yuan every month. Actually, he didn't know that 50 yuan was a lot for me at that time. Just like that, I persisted in writing. Sword Domain's results slowly got better and better. If it wasn't for that 50 yuan, I might have really gone into the sea. In our lives, we might have to make many choices. Some people choose to give up, while others choose to persevere and work hard. And every choice we make will change our fate. Perhaps hard work won't change our fate, but those who work hard will definitely live a good life. Take me for example. Although I don't have many monthly votes, I still insist on asking for votes every day. What if someone votes for me every day? Chapter 1293. Actually, Yi Xian had no love or hate for that unknown father of his. Simply put, he had no feelings for him. The two did not dwell on this issue. Yi Xian returned to the temple and continued studying the scriptures. He had to admit that these scriptures were much better than the previous ones. There were even some cultivation insights. Although not much, they were very practical. Outside the temple, Venerable Mi's face was gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. He did not think that Yi Xian was studying Buddhism. This guy must have some unspeakable secrets. But he had no choice. The realm of pure bliss could only wait for Nan Wu to return. Fortunately, Yi Xian only read the scriptures and did not do anything out of line. Otherwise, the realm of pure bliss would never agree to it. Although they were wary of Mu Niannian, it did not mean that they did not have any tricks up their sleeves. Yi Xian understood this as well. That was why he did not ask the Buddhists to give him the innumerable Buddha indestructible body. He knew that if he did, the Buddhists would never agree to it. By that time, he would not even be able to get the scriptures, let alone the innumerable Buddha indestructible body. These scriptures may be precious, but to the realm of pure bliss, they were just scriptures. Inside the temple, Yi Xian was studying the scriptures in a frenzy. He knew that he did not have much time left. Just like that, 3 days later, Yi Xian had fully comprehended the scriptures. He and Yi Jiming found some passages from Taoist scriptures, but it was still incomplete. Inside the temple, Yi Xian sat on the ground with his legs crossed, silent. Beside him, Yi Jiming was also silent. The 4th volume of Taoist scripture was incomplete. Yi Xian turned to Yi Jiming. Is it because the monk was holding back, or the scriptures are incomplete? Yi Jiming said in a low voice, both possibilities. Yi Xian was silent. Yi Jiming was silent as well. After a long time, Yi Xian suddenly said, Miss Yi, I think we might be wrong. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled and said, think about it, what's the purpose of that senior monk merging the 4th volume into these Buddhist scriptures? Yi Jiming narrowed his eyes. Let the Buddhist disciples of the Western Paradise learn Buddhist scriptures. Yi Xian said excitedly, yes, that senior monk's goal is to let Buddhist disciples learn Buddhist Dharma. In other words, Yi Jiming suddenly said, Buddhist scriptures are Taoist scriptures. Yi Xian nodded. If I'm not wrong, the eminent monk might have been afraid that the fourth volume of the Tao scripture would fall into the hands of an evil person. Thus, he held back. Only a true Buddhist practitioner could obtain the fourth volume of the Tao scripture. Yi Jiming said, a true Buddhist practitioner, in other words, someone approved by him? Yi Xian nodded. Yi Jiming asked in a deep voice, how can we gain his recognition? Yi Xian smiled and said, it's very simple. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian and said, don't speak. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up. Watch me. As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward. The sword domain suddenly appeared here, and it instantly enveloped all the scriptures here. Within the sword domain, Yi Xian could see through everything. In next to no time, the scriptures within the sword domain suddenly started trembling, and then some fine golden characters flew out from within the scriptures. In the end, the golden characters converged into the form of an old monk. Yi Jiming's face sank when he saw the old monk. The person in front of him should be the eminent Buddhist monk who had obtained the fourth scroll. After the senior monk appeared, his gaze fell on Yi Jiming. When he saw Yi Jiming, he was slightly stunned and said softly, you're actually from that place. Yi Jiming did not say a word. However, she had unknowingly clenched her fists. The senior monk looked at Yi Jiming and smiled. Miss, you were born with a pair of sharp eyes and a wise heart. How rare. Yi Jiming remained silent. The senior monk's gaze fell onto Yi Xian and he smiled. The cause of calamity. Yi Xian nodded. Yes. The senior monk smiled. You're wise and perceptive. Yi Xian pressed his palms together. Master, please forgive me for using such a method to invite you out. He didn't try to play tricks because doing so would only be asking to be humiliated. The senior monk chuckled. I just didn't expect that it wasn't someone from the Western realm who discovered the secrets of these scriptures, but outsiders. He paused for a moment and continued, of course, even though you're outsiders, you're still fated. Especially you, little brother. You're fated with the Buddhist realm. Yi Xian smiled. Senior, to tell you the truth, I'm enemies with the Western realm. The senior monk pressed his palms together. Little brother, I can tell that you're not an evil person. Yi Xian smiled. I have a Taoist scripture on me that the Western realm wants to steal from me. The senior monk's eyes flashed with surprise. Is it the Void Escape Scroll? Yi Xian nodded. The senior monk whispered. No wonder, I sense the aura of a prophet on you. But the prophet should have disappeared completely. Am I right? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. The senior monk sighed. The greed of humans has caused the deaths of many. Yi Xian said. Master, you merged the Taoist scripture into the Buddhist scriptures to avoid the greed of the Western realm's monks, am I right? The senior monk nodded. Monks cultivate Buddhism, but also Taoism. It should be said that the ultimate goal of many monks cultivating Buddhism is to cultivate Taoism, and Taoism is to compete. Now the Western realm wants to compete for the Taoist scripture in your hands. Yi Xian asked in a deep voice, Master, what do you think of this? The senior monk smiled. You want me to criticize the Western realm? Yi Xian smiled. Master, will you? The senior monk shook his head. I won't. Yi Xian looked at the senior monk and didn't say anything. The senior monk whispered. Little brother, we live more for ourselves in this world. Changing others is the most taboo in this world because it is very difficult. It is also best not to criticize others because we are not others. We are not qualified to use our own standards and worldview to judge others. Just like the Western realm, if they want to compete, I don't have the right to criticize them. I can't stop them from competing just because I don't, right? Yi Xian was silent. The senior monk continued. Of course, in my opinion, it is wrong for them to forcefully snatch little brother's study room. But little brother, aren't your actions the same as forcefully taking the Taoist scripture from the Western realm? Yi Xian looked at the senior monk and smiled. No. If you are not willing to give it to me, I will not force it. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian and frowned. The senior monk looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Yi Xian continued, Master, I am the enemy of the Western realm. If this Taoist scripture is in the hands of the Western realm, I will take it away at all costs because I will not talk about benevolence or morality to my enemies. But Master is different. Master has a benevolent heart and can distinguish between right and wrong. Most importantly, Master has never targeted me, Yi Xian. Therefore, in my heart, Master is not an enemy. The senior monk looked at Yi Xian. But I am from the Western realm. Yi Xian smiled and said, although the Elysium is my enemy, are all the monks in the Elysium bad people? Similarly, are all the people in the fifth dimension good people? A complicated look flashed in the senior monk's eyes. Good. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. She knew that this guy was going to start his performance. Yi Xian clasped his hands together. Master, to be honest. To be honest, after coming into contact with Buddhism, I am very interested in it. However, I am very confused about some of the theories and ideas of Buddhism. Master, please enlighten me. The senior monk smiled. Speak. Yi Xian said solemnly, Master, Buddha says that all living beings are equal. However, all living beings are not equal. Is Buddha lying to people? The senior monk smiled. All living beings are equal. This statement is very absurd in the entire universe. However, in the hearts of some people, all living beings are equal. I believe that in young Master Ye's heart, young Master Yi wouldn't look down on others just because he has reached self-release, right? Yi Xian looked straight at the senior monk. Then in Master's heart? The senior monk smiled. In my heart, all living beings are equal. Of course, there is still a difference between Buddha and all living beings. The difference lies in enlightenment and unenlightenment. Buddha is an enlightened person, while humans are an unenlightened Buddha. Yi Xian clasped his hands together. I understand. One last question. Master, if there is a conflict between cultivating Buddhism and cultivating Tao, what should I do? The eminent monk smiled slightly. It depends on the individual because everyone's choice is different. Some people cultivate Buddhism because they want to use the Buddhist Dharma to cultivate the Tao and achieve the legendary immortality. Some people cultivate Buddhism because they want to cultivate Buddhism and not for the sake of cultivating the Tao. Just like you, little brother. Your ultimate goal in cultivating Buddhism is to cultivate Tao. Therefore, you cannot become a monk. In your heart, cultivating Buddhism is only to strengthen yourself, right? Yi Xian nodded. The senior monk clasped his hands together. In this realm of pure bliss, there are many people like young Master Yi. At this time, Yi Jiming suddenly said, back then, the realm of pure bliss split because of this belief, right? The senior monk glanced at Yi Jiming and smiled. Yes. Some people advocate cultivating Buddhism, while others advocate cultivating Buddhism and Tao. However, if you want to cultivate Tao, you have to fight. This is in conflict with some Buddhist teachings. Yi Jiming said solemnly, I feel that you have turned yourselves into demons. Whether it is Tao or Buddhism, it is all about fighting. Master, when you cultivate Buddhism, don't you need to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth? Isn't this the same as fighting against heaven and earth? The senior monk chuckled. Miss, your words are sharp. Yi Jiming said indifferently, isn't that so? The senior monk clasped his hands together. I have already dispersed my cultivation and returned it to this world. Yi Xian's expression changed. Yi Jiming's expression also changed. Dispersed his cultivation and returned it to this world. Did this monk really do that? The senior monk said again, Miss, you are right. Cultivating Buddhism and Tao are different paths that lead to the same goal. We did not understand this point back then. Yi Xian suddenly looked at Yi Jiming. Let's go. Yi Jiming said solemnly, the Tao scripture. Yi Xian smiled. If it is mine, then it is mine. If it isn't, then it isn't. I don't want to snatch it from you. Saying so, he pulled Yi Jiming and left. At this moment, the senior monk suddenly said, Little brother, if I give you the Tao scripture, will you still fight against the realm of Pure Land? Yi Xian stopped and looked at the senior monk. I will. The senior monk clasped his hands together. If little brother becomes invincible one day, how will you treat the realm of Pure Land? Yi Xian looked straight at the senior monk. I will kill all my enemies, be they good or bad. As long as they are my enemy, I will kill them. The senior monk looked at Yi Xian for a long time. Opening his palm, an ancient book appeared in his hand. Little brother, this is the fourth Tao scripture. Now, it is yours. Saying so, the Tao scripture floated towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian's face was full of confusion. Master, this happiness came a little too suddenly. Tell me honestly, do you have a grudge against the realm of Pure Land? The senior monk was speechless. You're tuning into the A Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.